Okay. So, it is 9 o'clock. Uh, Could, you guys got your speakers on over there? Thank you. Okay, John, do you have everybody there? Still hearing feedback.
Yes.
Larry, your speakers on.
Is yours on? Is it John's? Okay, if you can hit the little icon that has the speaker with the. Okay, testing. Okay, we're good to go. Good morning, everybody. It's 9:01. We'll call the meeting to order. On today's agenda, we have 9 o'clock. We have aquatics, beach parking, racquetball, racket sports. And then at 10 o'clock, we're going to finish up on drainage, in particular looking at the Bainbridge project, I think, just the Bainbridge project. Then we go into general discussions. So I'm told we have a community member signed in here who would like at some point in time we get to racket sports. At the end of it, we'll let this person join in and add some comments and questions. With that, I think we're ready to go.
Okay. We're going to do the, yeah, so Steve just pointed out to me, we're going to do racket sports. For Kobe requested that we do racket sports first so that Terry can get back out on the court and proceed. So before that, as I started off every day, I just started off with some comments. And since today is the last day with BNF, I just want to summarize quickly some of the things I've said over the last couple of days, as well as what I have to say for today and going forward. So to me, to my team, the process is working. I appreciate that Dick allowed board members to be part of this process. As you know, I was a big advocate of that. I appreciate that 3 board members are spending a tremendous amount of time to understand this budget process and understand all the challenges, variables, the options, and everything I and my team have laid out, spelled out for everyone. I think it helps the process. I really do. I appreciate that the BNF committee is doing what I believe their role is and what I was led to understand 8-10 years ago is to get in there in every one of these line items and pick them apart. And I've explained to my team, and I didn't even have to, they understand that's part of the process, and they're doing everything possible to do that and to get that information. I believe I have summarized it. I have put it in perspective and tied it all together for all of you. I understand my authority and the limits to my authority. And I have put that out there, and that's this process, which is evolving. This is a working document where we can't say on day one, here's the assessment. There's too many factors here. There's too many options, as I told you, that need to be considered, or I believe, which are beyond my authority, and I've stated that I acknowledge that. I appreciate the board input yesterday, especially on the new capital. That needed to happen. I want to make sure everybody understands. I understand the limits or how that was put forth. I'm just putting out options. I'm asking them to be flexible as we look at this working document and this process evolves over the next couple of weeks till we get to the assessment. The process is working. I have highlighted that a big part of this budget, especially as a percentage to our total revenue, is salaries and benefits. We've highlighted the effect overall on the budget, especially when compared to last year's budget as requested by Dick in this BNF committee. We then have gone into each department and spelled out the differences from last year, and you've seen each time. That's a big part of it. We're managing through a challenge, a pandemic, a once in 100 years. And when I signed up back in November last year, and if anybody knows me, I knew over the next 3 years what our budget would be and everything. I just didn't plan for a pandemic. I think this team has managed well. We've made decisions, plenty of them. Sometimes it was to hold back, which had to be, and sometimes to do other things. I don't want to say pulled a rabbit out of our house, but we certainly made the right decisions on the PPP, the Affordable Care Act, and other items like that. And that's where we are now. That favorable variance this year, which will continue to unwind, is an important part of this process. One thing I haven't touched on, and I just want to make sure, and it's good to bring this up now because Colby's here, and I've asked Colby to kind of be the one on this, is beautification of Ocean Pines. Yes, I've come to you with racket sports. I've come to you with golf courses, food and beverage, other items like that. Drainage, #1 priority, Bainbridge. Colby will talk to you about that today. And we certainly moved resources there. I've certainly moved resources. We all have. The board has. The board understands it's a top priority. But we got to look at beautification. And we have stuff in there that comes under maintenance. We understand about the leaves. We're looking at that. Eddie and I are looking at trying to do things there and other things. But it is something that we need to look at, beautification of Ocean Pines. And that definition of that term certainly is going to evolve like everything else. So with that, just a couple of things to follow up on. I know, Larry, you asked yesterday about, I mentioned in the budget, there was $10,000 for the North Gate Bridge. I said it was for the guardrails, and then, obviously we had an accident there and everything else, but the bottom line is this. The money's basically for the approaches on both sides, the guardrails. The wooden ones that we have now just don't meet the standards today. So, whether that came into play because of that accident or whatever, but that has to be addressed, okay? So that 10,000 is needed for the guardrails, as I said, but it's to meet the standards of today. The other item to follow up on Public Works, and certainly, whether it was Larry, the whole B&F team and everybody, was the open spots for the laborers. We do need the manpower. It is my belief, Eddie's belief, that we're possibly, maybe we're not paying enough. When we say minimum wage, we just seem to say, okay, minimum wage. Well, maybe it's minimum wage plus. Eddie and his team are working on it right now. I hope to have that information. I certainly have to relook at it. I knew that was coming. Maybe time is now. And I'm fine with that. As far as the T-Docs and the information that was requested on that, I can tell you Nobi Violante is working on that. We're trying to get I don't want to say a final number, but we're getting the information that was requested yesterday. I believe it was the board. I believe it was Larry. We're working on that. As far as the racket sports, we have Terry here today and Colby. They'll talk to you about that. Those numbers are pretty good, if not numbers that we can work with. So we can talk more on that today. I stand by it that's something high on my list, and I think everybody else's. I do believe, and I am asking the board, and I do understand how the new capital works. Believe me, I understand that. I put it out there. I laid it out there. I'm trying to give options. I would sincerely hope that the board and this B&F team would be flexible and do what's needed there in relationship to the entire process and to the assessment, and understand what I'm trying to say or hoping that we do. I need people to be flexible. I got to tell you, when I look at the numbers, and I have not put the number out there, when I give you the reconciliations, I know a few of you, for some reason, like to yell out a number. It's a process. It's a process, and I can't tell you on day one what that assessment is going to be. I have a working document. I need the next 4, 5, 6 weeks. I've explained why. We all do, and we need to go through this process. When you look at these numbers, when we all look at these numbers, and I've explained that, sometimes when we don't do something for 5, 6, 7 years, and then, I think it was George or whatever said, why do I have these spikes in the allowance for doubtful accounts or other items? Well, we're finally addressing something that should have been addressed all along, or maybe put money aside each year, kind of like what Larry and Doug were explaining in the board, and I get it with the new capital, I do. But there's a separate piece that I'm talking about maybe takes priority over that right now, and that's where I'm hoping for the flexibility for all of us. When you don't do something for years, sooner or later, somebody's going to inherit that. Now, this B&F committee, myself, this board inherited somewhere around $1.8 million of deficit. Well, I can tell you these board members, this B&F committee, which has pretty much been intact, my team, our team, we've addressed that. And with this budget, that basically, that 1.8 million over 3 years or whatever is gone, will be gone. Gone. Okay? Well, so obviously we did our job and we paid for something else. That's all I'll say on that. But if you look at the last 2 years, we not only have paid that off, and again, that's the board, that's the B&F, that's all the other committees. I don't want to miss anybody here. It's all the team. But let's not lose perspective. Let's not look, we've also fixed things. We've addressed items. We have brand new clubhouse, brand new police station. What else we got? We got a craft building. I'm missing something. Oh, the cart barn. All stuff that was, look, we made the right call. So I'm just telling you, and that assessment over the last couple of years has been pretty much flat in my mind. So again, 70% of this budget is salaries and benefits. And the benefit number is going through the roof. All right. I just want to, my last thing on this for the board, and believe me, with all my appreciation and for my team, I need you to be, again, I need you to be flexible. I need you to understand, and everybody else, there are hard calls. And I mentioned yesterday something I haven't mentioned yet. There's going to be a little bit of pain all around. It probably starts in the GM position, but I see it coming. Just like before I took this job, I knew what this assessment and everything else and what we could achieve in 3 years. I just didn't plan for a pandemic. Okay? I didn't plan for, even in my mind, the percentages that I'm hearing on an increase in medical benefits. So that's it. That's all I got. Now let's get into the good stuff. I have the experts here. Kobe wants to start off with racket sports. Kobe.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning, Colby.
I'm going to go through tennis first, and as I go through the operational budget, I'm just going to highlight the things that might stand out, and if you have any questions and you need to ask throughout, please let us know, and we can answer. Tim and Terry are here with me today on the racket sports. They have taken racket sports to a whole new level, and we're just excited with what we're hoping to see in the future. So with tennis, our racket sports overall wasn't hit too bad with the pandemic because it being an outside sport, we lucked out there a little bit in regards to our revenue. And we're continuing to grow, which is great. Tennis, Terry's been working with USTA to bring in tournaments. We weren't able to do as many as we could this summer because of the pandemic, but moving forward, we're looking forward to bring that in, and there is a revenue for Ocean Pines, and if there's any questions on that, I'll let Terry elaborate. In regards to payroll, overall with all the racket sports, and Steve also put in there a combined racket sports budget because a lot of the things are split amongst the three. But in regards to payroll, it went up this fiscal year over last because my salary was split into those three budgets. So when you see the increase in payroll, that's kind of where that came from, even though this year our payroll, we haven't gone over it. One of the things that this new court with tennis that's going to bring in is going to bring handicap accessible tennis, which will also be something that we can grow over there too. So in regards to tennis, there's not a lot of change for next year. The difference is we're actually expecting less of a loss. And that's because of tournaments we're going to bring in. We just aren't 100% sure how much revenue that's going to bring. And the biggest hit for tennis every year is the clay courts that hit us at about $14,000 annually to have that resurfaced. Is there anything on tennis and that anyone has any specific questions on? I know these are smaller budgets, so.
Just give us a second here. We're looking at a sheet with numbers on it.
You just put on.
So I guess this may have been mentioned, but it's a small item, but there's something new for Pro Shop here. Is that right? Is that?
Oh, yeah. So thank you for bringing that up, Dick. So we used to have miscellaneous line there, and that was that was just extra things. And with John, we've trying to get, John and Steve have really been working on us trying to get more targeted down on specifics. So Pro Shop is something that through the USTA, Terry has grown. And so we're now able to purchase equipment, and that's going to just continue to grow. So we took the miscellaneous, which is where we were putting the Pro Shop stuff, and just switched it to what it really was. And then, so that's what that line is. It used to be miscellaneous, and now it is our Pro Shop revenue, which is, again, continuing to grow because everything we sell, we make a profit on.
Yeah, Colby, I'm looking at the contract services, and you've got 15,000 in there for tennis. Is that what we spent this year?
Yes.
So you're not
We still
anticipating
spend-
any increase in the contract services?
No, we're hoping. It was a lot higher this year with COVID. We had some extra cleaning expenses, and we're actually trying to find a lesser cost. So we're hoping that expense will actually go down a little bit next year. So that's why it's a little higher this year, but we're hoping it'll go down next year. That's our hope.
Okay, we have, is it Karen Kaplan? Is that it? Karen? You have a question?
Oh, we were wrong.
If your mic is not on, you want to turn your mic on, Karen. Okay, maybe the hand is.
Oh, sure.
In the meantime, Brian, you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Dick. Colby, I was just curious about the planned tournaments. I don't know how many people show up for that sort of thing, but is there, you need a consideration for managing parking and crowd control and things like that? Is it enough that you would need to budget for something like that, or is that already included in your planning?
So usually because we haven't really had it to that level yet, so it'll
Okay.
kind of be, it may be one of those things, but usually with a larger tournament, always with a larger tournament, Terry and Tim are there. I go over, Kathleen's there. So we do have staff if we need it. Police always comes and helps
Sure.
with crowd control and parking. We do have volunteers that do that. So far we haven't had to.
Oh, great.
But there's a possibility in the future we may, if they grow as large as we're hoping that they'll grow.
Yeah. To be determined. All right, great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
George.
Colby, just looking at these special events and tournaments, there's a revenue of $500. Is that the right number? I'm not sure how many tournaments you're talking about or what it is, but is that the right number for the revenue on a tournament? Is that one tournament? What's the outlook for tournaments that you talked about?
That's one right now, but it could be higher. And again, I'm going to let Terry's been more involved with the tournament, so I'm going to let him answer that question.
We had one tournament last year, a USTA tournament. It was our first time that Ocean Pines actually hosted a USTA tournament, and it was a singles tournament. It was a national ratings tournament at the end of September. We had 4 different age groups. and we brought in approximately $500. We applied, we had to go through a process to have host tournaments on site. I had to go through specific training of setting up the tournaments, being a tournament director, and how to administer and referee and host tournaments in a place like Ocean Pines. So I went through that process, and we now qualify to host handicapped adult tournaments and junior tournaments coming in. Now, obviously, right now, for the USTA and USTA Mid-Atlantic, they're kind of putting a hold on approving tournaments until the pandemic eases. So once the restrictions of the pandemic are lifted, then we can then host, and we plan to host tournaments throughout the summer. To give you an idea, our tournament was modest as far as a start because I wanted to see how it ran. So our first tournament, we had 24 players total that played in the tournament, which brought in about $500. The biggest tournament that we had on site last summer, which was the pickleball tournament, our average pickleball tournament, excuse me, that was 2 summers ago. Our average pickleball tournament made about $8,000 because we could bring in more players at that time, and it was a larger pool of applicants. So as we grow with tennis tournaments and tournaments in general on the complex, it's going to be definitely a money making and revenue gathering system. But as of right now, tournaments and that kind of competitive play is on hold because of USTA has to approve of all these competitions ahead of time.
Okay, so it's basically a conservative number, and we hope that's going to be more, but we don't want to put more in the budget because we don't know at this point is what you're.
Oh, it's definitely more.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's the number we were
I
able
certainly
to.
hope you get more then.
We're looking to do at least 4 to 5 tournaments over a summer's time, and that would be that's a minimum.
All right, thank you. I hope we get more.
Doug.
Yeah, I'm looking at the revenue projections on the total racket sports budget, and I think it's reasonable. I guess my question to you guys, are you comfortable with that number, 95K? I'd see the big change in line 346, which now was significantly next to nothing. Now is 10.5, and I guess based on the comment that was just made, are you guys comfortable with saying that you'll be able to, realize that revenue because of the special events? Because it's a pretty big jump. I don't have a problem with it. It's just the question is how comfortable are you with that number? Because, obviously the budget's going to be based on that projected revenue. And, do you feel like you've got enough in new programs and or potential members and changes in membership dues and so on and so forth to reach that particular revenue projection?
Also the pickleball number, but I haven't gotten it yet.
Right. I want to share with you some numbers in this past summer. Even though we had tremendous restrictions because of the virus, we averaged 115 people per day for June, July, and August. This is the first time we've ever kept fees collected in September, October, and November. We still averaged 85 people per day the past couple of months. And I have a strong feeling those numbers next summer could average 150 people per day in June, July, and August. And in the fall, probably exceed people per day. I'm pretty confident that
You are breaking up a little bit.
And Doug, on that too, the tournament line you're looking at, we haven't gotten to pickleball yet, but the tournament that Terry brought up, where it brings in about $8,000, pickleball used to pay us a rental fee to do the tournament. And going into next year, we're actually going to be running the tournament ourselves. So we're going to be able to collect that revenue through Ocean Pines. So that's where that big jump is there when you combine the 3 schools.
Yeah, that's fine. I guess the only concern is that I optimistic revenue projections, but given the uncertainty about COVID and how much rebound we'll have, will we get back to the same levels or above that we were prior to COVID? I'd like to think the answer is yes, but wouldn't want to hold you to a revenue number that, could be affected by, conditions and situations out of your control. So, but that's fine. That's fine.
So Kobe, so I just asked Kobe and Tim and Terry if I can jump in. It's a couple things I want to. First of all, it's a good question. Number one, Kobe did address the first thing I was going to say about the pickleball and tournaments. That's a big change. And it's a good one. Doug, I understand your question about COVID. Remember, the task that they were given was non-COVID. This is a non-COVID budget, and they do have history down there, as Tim told you, with the good numbers they saw this year. So the answer on the COVID would be that separate adjustment, which Steve will summarize overall for everybody again. The other thing is there were process changes down there that have been implemented by this team that I believe encourages a better revenue number. That's basically what I'll say on that. It's well welcomed. And it just shows you the type of team you have down there, is that they believe in this thing. So believe me, we looked at it a lot. This is a credit to the team, but thank you for the question.
Hey, Colette, you have a question?
Yeah, I'm looking at the water and sewer numbers. I see they fluctuated quite a bit over the years. And this year's proposal is half roughly of what you're forecasting. What accounts for those fluctuations? And do you feel that's?
We had a sewer issue in the beginning of this year that had.
Okay.
That's where that is.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the
Thanks.
difference from this year to next. Yeah.
Okay.
I think we have a question from Karen Kaplan. Okay.
Josh, can you unmic her?
She is unmuted.
It's showing muted on the participant list here.
Tom has a question through text. Go ahead.
Thank you. Karen Kaplan lives in the park, and she lives down the street from me. And she called me yesterday, and she was concerned about the inequities in the increases in the racket sports. In particular, she's a member at large of Platform Tennis. And what she says here is that I guess tennis had a decrease in their the membership, annual membership. Pickleball had an increase, but when you go to the daily rates, tennis went down $4, pickleball went up $3, and platform tennis doubled from $5 to $10. She'd like to know the thinking behind how you raise those rates.
Tom, it's a great question on that. Tim, Terry, and I discussed and then shared with John and Steve some changes that we made in that, and we were going to discuss that today. I was going to go through each operational budget and then discuss the user fees and memberships and what we came up with. I can do that now if that's preferred. If you guys would rather me go ahead and hit the user fees and membership now, I can do that.
Yeah, as long as it's in your agenda here, we can do it now.
Okay. So on
we have a tab for that, don't we?
On the tennis daily, I'll address the daily fees first. On the tennis daily.
Direct us where that is.
Where is it?
Just the first section.
It's in the summary section, guys. I apologize. Colby sent me an email a couple days ago.
Right now.
I didn't get it distributed out with everything else. Page 10, Colby's telling me, user fees.
Page 10, Kobe's right.
So we got two different, it's in here twice. What are you looking at, Kobe?
I'm looking at the user fees, and under tennis, the
And-
daily resident owners and daily non-residents.
Page 4 in tennis?
I'm sorry?
Page 4 in tennis, is that it?
No, I think it's in the front of your book under the summary.
Section 1, page 10 is where Stephen Colby's asking you to go.
All right, section 1, page 10, all right.
Right, that has the,
Has all of them probably, right?
that's just the current rate.
All right, so we're looking at page 10, section 1.
So, as everyone knows, when we put the budget together, we do our best guess and projections and thoughts, and then things can change. And so when Tim, Terry, and I got together this past week, after some conversation, we wanted to take tennis back from the $6 we projected back to the $10 it is currently for the daily rate, and bring pickleball and platform back to the $5, which it is currently for residents. So we wanted to keep that as it is now. For non-residents were the same as residents. They've always been the same price. And as everybody knows, you know, with the pools, we're trying to make that difference. There's always the comment on the difference. So we are asking for tennis to go to $12 for non-residents, and pickleball and platform to go to $6. And the reason why we only did the dollar on platform and pickleball is because we still have a lot of non-residents that come in, but we wanted to just do that little bit of an increase of about 10%. So that's on the dailies. Anyone have any questions on that specifically?
So for residents, pickleball daily is 6 or 5? It's 6?
For daily residents, it'll be 5, which it is currently.
All right, here it says 6, so we'll make that 5.
Right. That was what we were projecting, and then you all had gotten the books when we went and discussed it after, and it was just this week, so.
And for residents, tennis is 5?
No, tennis will be 10, pickleball 5, platform 5.
For residents?
That's what it currently is now. 10, 5, and 5.
Okay, as long as we're on that subject, does that address Aaron's questions?
I think so.
I think it does. She was looking, she went online and looked at our 70-page budget thing, and she looked under the tab 13, which had different rates than we see on this user fee sheet. So I think we've addressed that. She had 2 other issues that she thought she'd bring up, and one was the addition of a hut, and the second one about expanding parking in that area. So if someone could talk to those.
Tom Karen had also asked about the membership dues, so if it's okay, I'm going to go, because we are projecting a change there. So since we're on this, and then if we can go to the other 2. So just to recap on the daily fees, tennis will remain at 10, pickleball and platform 5 for members or residents or owners. Marty tells me they're members, but so residents or owners. So I'll throw that in there for him. On the daily non-residents, we're projecting to go to 12 for tennis and 6 for pickleball and platform. That's on the dailies. Okay. For membership dues, the only changes that we made on here were that we brought pickleball and platform tennis annuals up $20 for individuals, and excuse me a minute.
So that's in the tennis section, right?
Yeah, that should be the next page, I think.
Okay.
Section 1, page 9 has membership dues.
I mean, I printed the page.
Page 9.
So what you're seeing for a family at $280 for platform and pickleball was $260, and we brought it to $280. And for individual, it was I believe 150 and we brought it to 170.
Could have just marked it on mine, too.
And we did that, I'm going to focus on platform and pickleball first. We did that because of the increases, of minimum wage and everything else. The reason why we lowered tennis, and actually we changed this is another spot where we changed what we wanted to lower it to. On your sheet, it shows tennis family 380. We actually want to make it 400. And individual, it says 220, and we actually wanted to make it 250. And the concept behind lowering those memberships was because we're trying to draw more memberships in, and tennis is really hurting there. So our hope was by lowering those a little bit, which they're already higher than the other two sports, was to bring in some more membership. Don't know if that.
Tennis after 12 rates, good, 165.
Yeah, those were the only changes that we were.
All right.
And so I'm a little confused because of all the numbers we've thrown out here. So let me see if I understand this correctly. On the rates under tennis for residents, for tennis, we're going from $6 to $10 or from $5 to $10?
No, so currently right now,
Colby, you start over again. We had the speaker off.
yeah, currently right now, the rates are 10, 5, and 5. That's what it's been for years. We were going to try and go lower on tennis and higher by $1 for residents, but we decided we wanted to just keep it the same.
Okay, so if I understand, okay, so tennis was $10, it's staying at $10 for resident, right?
Correct.
Okay. Pickleball is at 5 and 5, and platform is 5 and 5?
Yes, so it's staying at those.
Okay. Okay, so my question is, why wouldn't we be increasing those rates if everything else is going up? Salaries and benefits are going up, and we know that they are popular programs. Why would they stay at $5 a piece? You don't have to answer that now. I'm just bringing that question up.
I'll be glad.
So then let's go down to the non-residents. So tennis is currently at what?
10.
So you're going from 10 to 12 on tennis. Pickleball is how much?
5.
5?
Yes.
And you want to go to 6?
Yes.
And platform is what?
5.
And you want to go to 6?
Yes.
So again, with the minimum wage issues, with the 30% increase in benefits, it would be my impression that those numbers need to go up, particularly when you're looking at an overall, make sure I'm correct here, an overall proposed loss for next year of $10,800. So I don't think these numbers, these fees that you're proposing are where they should be, and I would suggest that you go back and take another look at them. It would, it appears to me that some of these numbers can be adjusted. That's my input.
Thank you.
Mary, I'd like to respond to that. Last year, Terry, Colby, and I inherited a sinking ship at the racket facilities in which fees were not being collected and the facility was not being taken care of properly. And I really think that we have got it moving in the right direction. I do feel we'll have an increase in daily attendance this summer. I do think for the first time we're implementing 2 different fees, one for non-property versus property. And I would like for the board to give us a second summer of trying to get this thing really correct. If we keep moving in the right direction this time next year, I surely would consider an increase in that daily fee. But I think it's too early for us to do that, and we still don't have the thing exactly the way we need to have it.
Yeah, I've got a comment here along Larry's lines. It looks like for pickleball and platform tennis, the people, you want membership. You want people to join as a member, family or individual. And those are going up, 260 to 280 and 150 to 170. And it's kind of a disconnect to say that those are going up, but those that are not members, individual days, is staying flat. Now, the revenue from individual days, I don't know what proportion that is, but it's something. I kind of agree with Larry. It makes sense to me that if one side's going up, the other side should be going up some too.
Okay, Dick, we can, because we looked at it again this week, and I need to go back with Tim and Terry and look at that and adjust the revenue too on that with the daily fees. We can rediscuss that based on suggestions and talk with John.
Now, I don't know enough about tennis to say that, you're trying to drive tennis population up, and people there probably know a lot more about than I do. Your logic there is by lowering the tennis rates, you think you're going to increase maybe your revenue at the end. Is that correct? Or
I couldn't really hear your question. I'm sorry.
so the question was, you feel like by reducing tennis rates for families and individuals, that you're going to ultimately end up with more revenue because you're going to have more people signing up for that?
That's correct.
I have to go with you because I don't have a judgment on how that would work. George is next in the comment.
If we go to tab 13, page 4, Colby has it broken down on the old dues versus the new dues and the membership. So if I look at that, the current budget shows 66 members at the old rate of 435, which I guess we're proposing goes to 400. Individual from 270 down to, this says 220, but Colby, you said 250, so you've kind of modified that. So your projection is we're going to have 82 members versus the 66 in 2022. And again, not the mere Dick statement, I'm not that familiar with tennis, but so you think we're going to, draw another, 16 people out of that?
Well,
Numbers, is that some feedback from the community or what's that look like?
No, that's a great team feels that what we're expanding here, hopefully non-COVID, that we're going to be able to, with what we're going to be offering through tennis with the USTA, and that we'll be able to grow that membership. Yes.
So in looking at that, we'll go from basically 19.3 to 21.1. So you're projecting increased revenue at that, if I read the sheet right, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, Larry's next.
Yeah, and I have one more comment. And I guess it's really at the daily tennis rates. I understand you're trying to incur more membership. But one of the ways you do that is by increasing the daily rate also. But the other thing in regard to tennis is that's the only one of these racket sports that incurs that $15,000 contract services for the courts, the clay courts. Everything else is equal. So that's a big chunk of, that's a big chunk of money for this program. So again, I would suggest that we go back and take another look at those tennis rates.
Okay. Yeah, we'll go and look at those with John and Steve about those.
And I guess also, just on the daily fees, administratively, the more people that, there's a lot of people that probably evaluate how many times I'm going to play, and I'm going to pay as I go. So the more attractive it is for people to get a membership, it's a good thing. Also administratively, it's a good thing because you're not having to handle $5 every time somebody, or $6 every time somebody shows up, and it's just a lot more efficient.
And I have
John.
a question.
Yeah, John was next.
Colby, this is John O'Connor. I mean, how competitive are you with in your daily rates with the surrounding area?
Yeah. Terry.
Our rates are less than Sea Colony, which is probably the,
Terry, if you get a little closer to the mic, it'd be great.
Sea Colony would be the,
They can't hear you. Move up closer.
You got to talk louder.
Sea Colony is more expensive to play on their courts, both in the wintertime and summertime than we are. They are probably the tennis facility that's closest to us that charges guest fees and has membership packages there. They have a $200 membership fee for players to play just in the winter time. But if those people have that membership, they also have to pay on top of that $200 to actually play on the courts themselves. So they'll play, a person that wants to play winter tennis pays $200 to be a member, to have the rights to reserve courts, and then pays a user fee every time they play. So we're probably, as far as, I would say, elite courts or premium courts in the area, the best bargain. You have the county courts that are around here that have no charge, but they are in not very good shape. Shallow Parks courts have dead spots. Ocean Cities have dead spots in the courts where ball doesn't bounce, and their hard-true courts are not maintained. So we have probably the best hard-true courts on the Eastern Shore, and I think the best rates for people that want to play tennis. And also the bonuses is that our staff is all of our teaching professionals are certified teaching professionals. So they all gone through the process of being nationally certified to teach the given sports that they want to instruct on.
Well, that.
Yeah, I have two questions. How close are you to getting the rate of usage in tennis that you seek? And secondly, what is the reason that the tennis membership and individual rates are so much higher than the other sports?
Well,
so two questions.
As far as being high, I think it was because of that hard-true court maintenance that has to be done every year. It's something you can't skip. In fact, to maintain those kinds of hard-true courts properly, every 10 years they're supposed to go over they're supposed to have a major overhaul. And the courts that we have never gone through the major overhaul, which is called laser sculpting, that puts those courts back to their original state. So every year to maintain the courts, it's a $15,000 hit to put the hard-true courts back to the playing surface.
Okay, thank you.
That's why they're higher than the other two.
Okay, and then how close are you to getting the rate of utilization that you're hoping for on the tennis?
Hard question to answer because of the pandemic, but what we have going in place is that the things we put in place are teaching programs that are attracting kids and adults outside of the community, tournaments that are attracting adults and juniors outside of the community. We've run a tournament. When we ran our tournament in September, we had entrants from West Virginia, Virginia Beach, upper portions of Maryland and Philadelphia. So we had participants from all over. Our pickleball tournaments are coming in from all over. So we know that Ocean Pines Racquet Complex can attract people to come and play. We ran the tournament and we know it can be successful there. So post-pandemic, we feel that we can draw in locals to play tennis and learn to play tennis there, as well as people from outside of the Eastern Shore community.
And so that speaks to Tim's request that we give you guys another season to show what you can do. Okay, thanks.
And I'd like to add, this is the first time we've ever had a USTA certified instructor. Previous summers, we did not have a USTA certified instructor. In this past summer, our attendance at these clinics and lessons that Terry were giving were very encouraging. I think now the community realizes that they're going to get first-class instruction from Terry and his team, and that's why we're confident you're going to see an increase.
Yeah, and Dick, you can't see John, but I want to pass it over to John because.
Oh, thank you, Colby. Oh, thank you. So a couple things. It definitely is a change there. I have spent a lot of time there, and by the way, I don't play racket sports, but it's on my way to the office, and there's a lot of good stuff going on there. It's no different than what I've told you about golf. It's invigorating. They've made a lot of changes. We're working on those courts and the fences, and it's one of the reasons why I had the racket sports, the new courts as a high priority. This isn't about building it and they will come. They're there. They're there. Now, I understand about these prices and the questions you're all asking, the good questions. There's a little change down there, and we'll all get it right. So those numbers are good, and we back it, and this team backs it, and I back this team, this entire team here. I do have a question of Kobe and Steve, and specifically Steve. If they didn't get the changes in the rates, which is fine, and Kobe did a good job explaining it to them, there was also a $40,000 charge. Did they get that also that they just asked for? Does BNF have that?
What are we talking about, $40,000?
The maintenance.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They have it?
The capital, I sent out the maintenance, 33,000 and change. Yeah, we agreed with these fees that we would just talk about it, but actually.
No, I'm asking about the $40,000 or whatever the number, 34,000, that maintenance. I thought we were going to talk about that today. Do they have that?
Yes.
Where is it? Is it in the operating budget or is it in the capital?
They have handouts that were set over in the room yesterday, and they got it via email.
So there was a change, and I just want to make sure we all have it, and including myself. But I'd like you all to review that because that's a big charge, $40,000, and it goes in line with everything else they're saying as far as maintenance. So I'd just like the team to talk about it. And where exactly, Steve, did you put it? Because I know there was a discussion about it being maintenance.
Yeah, so I haven't put it anywhere because it would have changed the overall assessment in every page in the binder. So I just sent it there for review purposes, and
okay, but
yeah.
it needs to be
All right,
addressed. That's a big number.
Steve, you have to tell us what and where.
So can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can.
I can't. The handout that was provided yesterday in the Ask Teak room, as well as the email I sent out.
The handout I have that was in the room yesterday is the capital summary.
Correct. There's 5 pages of that. Last page of that, or 3 to 5 pages of that. Last page of that is a specific capital sheet that references what John's alluding to.
So what I'm saying is, and this needs to be reviewed, is there was a $40,000 maintenance fee that was just brought forward this week for cracks. I just want to make sure, and I had asked Steve, and he obviously did give the handouts. So I just want to make sure everybody understands that, sees the change, and this thing is discussed. This is a $40,000 maintenance. I'm hearing capital, I'm hearing maintenance. Maintenance to me is P&L, is to repair cracks. I need this discussed with BNF. I am asking Steve to specifically now hone in on that and make sure everybody understands this before we go forward.
Right.
The team is here in place.
Yeah, so Dick, right now it's not reflected in capital or any of the operating P&Ls. I guess my initial reaction to it was it'd be maintenance related, so it would be a P&L effect. But I thought further discussion warranted the classification.
Just so everybody knows, it's to repair cracks and paint the new pickleball courts, well, they're getting older now, to maintain them, and then the 2 hard tennis courts, 9 and 10.
And this is maintenance for after May 1?
Yes.
Which is not reflected in those P&Ls that you just looked at, is my understanding, unless the new ones that were put out there reflects it. Steve? That's $40,000. I just want to make sure everybody sees this.
It's back, the estimate is 33,000.
All right, 33,000.
Yeah, right, 33,000, no, the P&Ls do not have that in there right now.
Okay, so you all heard that. The P&Ls do not have that. He explained that was a lot of change at the last minute, and I get that, but I just need to make sure everybody understands that that $33,000 charge for maintenance is not reflected throughout, and that you all understand what it's for. The team is here.
Hey, John, again, you're right, this is an operations cost, so are you looking to get this in before the end of this fiscal year, or is this for this budget going forward?
So the way it was, the way they presented it there, and I just heard it's for the next, but it's the budget that we're talking about, the 2022 budget.
Okay, so this will be the normal bid process and motion from the board to the board and the whole deal, right?
This would be normal bid process unless I do this. Obviously, we can't do it in-house, but this would be normal bid process, yes. The main thing I just want to make sure everybody walks away with is, one, this was a last minute change and it's fine, but it's not reflected in those P&Ls. It's not reflected in the overall. It's a 30, whatever the number they finally came up with, 34,000, and I'm sure it's a good number. $34,000 P&L.
All right, so will that be a change? One of the takeaways here, and it will the budget going forward, it'll be reflected in your operational budget.
That's a correct statement. Yes.
Okay, so we have a potential uptick here, and I guess what I'm seeing and reading into this is that we have cracks, right? And then we have painting.
Canyons.
Yes.
Excuse me?
Yes, we do. We're starting to get cracks, and we want to get that fixed before they get any worse, so that we can maintain and keep them looking nice.
If you didn't do this, and it goes on, continues on, does your cost get more expensive, and can
Yes.
do a lot more damage?
Yes, it'll do more damage, especially with play on it.
So let me, Colby, I just heard, is this something that's been going on, or has this just happened?
This has been going
just
on,
slowly
and it
starting,
will
yeah.
continue going every year.
Just getting worse.
So what I'm hearing from Tim, this is another example that you can put into that basket of what I've been talking about, whether it was golf or anything else. I just heard Tim, everybody else saying this has been going on. It's been going on. And again, it hasn't been addressed over years. And correct me where I'm wrong, anybody in this room. And if you don't correct it like you just heard, obviously one day we'll be sitting here, somebody will be sitting here saying, we need new courts. So credit that this came in at the last minute, but this is what we're hearing. Now's your time to discuss it, the team's here.
Okay, any other, to me, I think it's something that sounds like it needs to be done, it needs to be put into the budget. Anybody think otherwise, or comments?
It's paid out of reserve.
No.
It says it right on the sheet here. Why is it not out of reserve?
Because it's maintenance to repair cracks and painting, so that's, repairing cracks and painting would seem to me would be a maintenance item.
It's right here on the sheet here.
On the sheet, it's checked as replacement.
Well,
You have to raise the rates then.
so John, is it replacement or is it maintenance?
The team brought it forth, from my understanding here, is a replacement. That's what I want this BNF team and anybody else to weigh in. I was told it was maintenance. It kind of sounds like maintenance to me. That's certainly something I'd like discussed here while the team of experts is here and your team is there, Dick, because this is a big number.
Pickleball courts advertised?
What's that, John?
John, were the pickleball courts advertised?
Advertised?
Yeah, did we depreciate the pickleball courts when we built them?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know if you heard Colby. I'm going to say yes, and I sincerely hope so. Yes, I'm looking at my controller. I'm sure they are, but he'll double check that right after this meeting.
Yeah, because if we depreciated, then if you got to fix them up, it comes out of the replacement reserve.
I got no problem with that. I just want guidance. I want to make sure that when something's defined as maintenance, and maybe at one time it might have been maintenance, but and look, I'm open.
Yeah, maybe I don't fully understand what we're doing here. And maybe maybe the $33,000 means we're doing more than I'm thinking we're doing. When I think of fixing cracks and painting, I don't, I think of general
That's
maintenance.
what you're doing.
So-
You're fixing cracks. You're fixing. I'll answer your question as we go along. I'm going to let Terry, Tim, and Colby correct me, but I'm hearing that's what it is, and they can correct me if you need something else. They're saying it's fixing cracks and painting.
So along those lines, does this increase the useful life of the courts?
Based upon if you just let this kind of stuff and you don't do any maintenance like anything else, a bridge or anything, if you don't do it for 30 years, the maintenance, at one day, you're going to wind up replacing the whole thing. If that answered your question, go ahead, Colby wants to jump in.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you kind of looks at the tennis court, swim and racket, they were neglected for a very long time. They got to the point where they were so bad that people were, claiming that they were unsafe. And I think the cost came back originally at $80,000 just to repair that. And so, yes, over time, if they're not kept up on, the cost will increase because they'll bubble more, the cracks will get deeper. It's also a safety issue if it gets to be too bad. So it is a necessity, and they're just starting with the usage that we're getting there. And, the weather and everything, they're starting to crack, and we just need to address it before it gets worse. The longevity of them will be saved with us addressing this now, and the cost will be less if we address it now as in the future.
Understand. Doug, you had a question?
Yeah,
One
I
other
mean,
point,
if we're not
the
adding
company,
square footage or adding to the functionality of the existing asset, and we're doing regular maintenance, why, I don't understand. I guess this question more for John, John O'Connor. Why would it come out of replacement? It's clearly a maintenance cost to maintain the useful life of that asset that's on the books. We're not pulling it out and replacing it with something new. We're actually just continuing its useful life. So I guess from my perspective, that's a maintenance cost, not a replacement reserve cost.
Doug, I got to ask. Go ahead, John. I'm sorry, John O'Connor.
John?
So,
Was the question for John O'Connor?
There's a question for John O'Connor, yeah.
well, I guess it's to me, my feeling is if you got to fix up a road, it comes out of replacement. This is no different than a road. Just happens to be a special patch of blacktop for pickleball or whatever. I don't know about maintenance, but you can toss it around all you want. I guess it makes no difference. But if you depreciated it when you built it, then it should come out. Anything take care of it should come out of replacement reserves. Just like you would replace an air conditioning system in a building if it was part of a building and needs to be replaced, it'd come out of replacement reserve because there's a certain life to everything.
Yeah, the only difference there is, just John, is the comparison on
Mario
that.
asked a question.
Can I just
Well,
answer that?
really, I don't have a question. I've got resolution FO3 in front of me that deals with this issue. First off, John, in regard to the roads, that reserve account is a maintenance reserve account, so it's not a replacement reserve account. It is a maintenance reserve account. So the money comes out of there for road maintenance, not necessarily replacement. And that is, they are depreciable. But under FO3, cyclical maintenance and replacement schedule, the last sentence is that this schedule should be updated annually. Maintenance expenditures for from reserves must be major and non-routine in nature. So I think that puts an end to that discussion. These are, while the maintenance may have been not done for years, this is still routine maintenance that should be done. And I guess the question of whether $33,000 is major or not could be debated, but I don't think it can be. This is we're spending this kind of money because the routine maintenance was not properly done. And I'm not pointing fingers at anybody that has been an issue with Ocean Pines for a long time, and we are in the process of correcting it. But from our financial resolutions, this is this is maintenance costs, and it should be on the P&L.
Don, you had a question? Don?
Yeah, just a quick one. How many courts are involved in this? And if you do the $33,000, and I know it depends on weather and everything, but when would you have to do another $33,000? How many years down the road?
10 years. I don't know the year first redone, but I could take it there. I don't.
I would say roughly 10 years if they're properly maintained. And when a crack appears, you can go ahead and do things right then to prevent it from getting more severe. That has not been done. And when we met with our vendors, the company we're most comfortable with is Terra Firm, that we would like to see build the new courts. That is the same company that would repair the 10 old courts. Terra Firm has just built new courts at Worcester Prep. They've gotten great compliments. We did a lot of research on which company we should have. The past company that we had fix those cracks, ATC, out of Baltimore, did a very poor job. And we really don't want to have them come back. We need to get this done right now, and it will save us money over the long run.
Okay, how many courts are there?
10.
Okay.
George?
Just to help maybe put this in perspective, that it's, and I would agree with Larry and Dick, I think this is a maintenance issue. Let's say you have an $80,000 tractor that you use and you know, you need to take care of it, you need to do the maintenance on it, and a seal blows, so you fix the seal on it, et cetera, et cetera. If you don't maintain it and it falls apart, you know, then you have a problem. So, you know, taking that's a maintenance issue. You have to maintain the piece of equipment. And I'm thinking that this is a maintenance issue because you're maintaining what you already have, you're not replacing it. Similar to the tractor. You have to do the daily maintenance or the routine maintenance to make it last. And again, as Larry said, we didn't do some of this, not anybody's fault, not pointing fingers, but that's why I equate this as a maintenance issue versus a replacement.
Yeah,
that helps.
And no, it's actually excellent. So and that's spot on with that example, George. And I just wanted to go back to Johnny O and say with the air conditioners is right. If we change, you know, some seals or whatever in each year, that's maintenance. If we just let it run down and then this thing is worthless and it doesn't work or whatever, then obviously when I go to replace it, I replace it. So the question for any type of association or company is it cheaper to maintain each year where this might be $2,000, $3,000, or you let it build up and then eventually somebody, you know, in my seat is sitting here asking you for $200,000 for courts or whatever. We want to maintain it. They're telling me that this is the right way to go. This is where it comes under pain because for years, and I agree with Larry, we've seen this everywhere and we're the ones trying to fix it. And this is the right way to go. It's like I've said before, if you cut costs at any cost, it's going to cost you. So they believe that fixing this, if it's maintenance, it's maintenance. I'll take the guidance from this team. I know what it is, but you know, we're a team here in all that. Of course, if you will come back and tell me it's replacement, I'm certainly not going to disagree with you, but George is right. George is spot on, Larry's spot on, you're all spot on. Credit to this team bringing it forward, and credit to us saying we need to do this.
Okay, Brian has a question.
Yes, just quickly, I was curious, is the 33K a pretty firm number, or could you expect it to be less or more once you get some?
Bids on it, so that's a pretty firm number. We've already gotten the bids.
Okay, thank you.
And that company, Brian, that company's going to be there, as Tim mentioned, assuming that you all, and the board agrees to let us put those courts in, the new courts.
Hey, John, we don't have to look any further than what we just talked about with the chief on that, vehicle he needs. I mean, the engine was not properly maintained, and the vehicle is old. The engine that was put back into it years ago wasn't the right thing to do. So now, instead of just paying for maintenance, it being a maintenance item, it is now a replacement item.
Correct.
So this is no doubt in my mind, this is a maintenance.
And when you say no doubt in your mind, what you mean also is that we need to do this, correct? That's what I want to hear from this team.
I think we clearly need to do it. And I think what we've been discussing here is how it's properly reported. I think what we're hearing maintenance is how it should be properly reported. And I think there's agreement here that I think there is, unless somebody speaks otherwise, but we need to do this.
Okay. Thank you.
Tom, you had brought up two other questions. I'm going to answer one and then let John answer the parking one. So in regards to the platform hut that Karen had asked for, this past summer, Vin, who is now the president of their platform group, we met and they started doing some work on the hut. But it is something I know that when I got involved with racket sports in 2016 that they've been asking for a long time. We decided not to put it in this year, but it isn't off the table completely. And it's just something that we felt we could get, because we actually are looking at the whole facility, the racket center itself as well. Bigger bathrooms. So we're not doing anything with that yet because we're looking at the center as one big project. So that's why that is not on the table now, but it is on the radar of something that the team and I are discussing with John and Steve going forward. It's just not this year. So I just wanted to say that's why we allowed them to do some upgrades this summer with that. And then I'll let John answer the parking question that she had here.
Thank you, Kobe. Actually, this is a good venue for me to bring this up now. We just heard about this, as Steve mentioned, and whatever, and credit to the team about this maintenance. I understand I'm sitting here for a proposed budget for 2022. I also understand, and I have knowledge that we have, what's the name of the company, Terra Firma, they're here. And I just spoke to Tim. As long as the temperature is above freezing, which makes sense to me, I can do that maintenance this year. Obviously, it's not in the budget, but it's an option. And quite honestly, it's an option I'd like to take. The whole team behind me is telling me yes. So I'm bringing this forward to B&F. I would like to do this maintenance now. And I'd like to get some guidance on that. And look, everything, what I mentioned earlier about being flexible, I think we can be, you told me this is the right thing, whether it's maintenance or replacement. I get it. If we have the go-ahead blessing from B&F, and I got a few board members here, I'd like to put that option out there that I would like to do this work now. And I got a team behind me of experts telling me thumbs up. So it will be this year's budget.
Yeah, well, I understand that, and maybe it makes sense to do it now. If you're doing it for the cheapest price now, in other words, if they're all here doing the other courts, assuming they get approved, and they're doing it all at once, if it's cheaper, well, that's also something to consider. Likewise, alongside doing it right now, the courts are less occupied and less used now, so doing it right now is probably a very good time to do it for that reason. whether you spend it now or spend it later, it's going to come out of one budget or the other. So it means your surplus this year is a little bit less, and next year's budget doesn't have to have it, or vice versa. So,
Okay,
I guess long and short, I'm saying if it makes sense to do it now, I guess it really doesn't matter budget-wise.
thank you, Dick. Let me just, I do owe you some information in this. The team has that information because we're going to go forward. They have the 3 bids. Okay, but when you say to me, is this the cheapest bid? I'm going to tell you no. It's not the cheapest bid. However, we've been down this road before. I got about 60 years of experience, I don't know, whatever. I mean, I say that as a positive. I have a lot of wisdom, whatever, dealing with this stuff, dealing with the suppliers. The supplier that's more money is the supplier that they picked. This supplier is going to do other work for us, and I believe they were very competitive on the other stuff. We're recommending not the lowest bidder, but going with somebody who has done work for us, and that this team behind me has knowledge of the type of work they do versus other. Now, the other work, they are the lowest, as I mentioned. Now, Kobe just gave me the numbers, which we all have. So it's almost like saying this is a preferred supplier.
I understand.
Lower, all right, on other stuff.
I don't think that's, I don't think we're into those weeds right now. But yeah, I understand that.
Reed, you asked me if they were the low, as long as they were the lowest supplier.
No, I really meant, does it make sense to do it now versus later? Is it cheaper to do it now versus later?
Oh, I'm sorry, Dick, I misunderstood that. I would say it's probably the same price. Apologies.
And if it is the same price, doing it now when the courts are not fully occupied is not a bad thing.
Thank you, Dick. Anybody, is that the overall BNF recommendation, or do you need to take your vote or whatever?
I'll let BNF weigh in.
I'm fine with doing it this semester.
I'm okay
I'm
with.
fine with doing it this year. My question is, do you have to get the board to approve it?
Yes.
All right. Yeah, this year is good.
I will be coming forward on the 20th with the bids and with the explanations, just like the parking lot, just to give you an information. I know I got 3 board members, and I appreciate I have 3 board members, and I appreciate Dick giving them the time. I will send out, with a team, we will send out this along with the bids for the parking lot, so that you have time, whatever today's date is, or probably I'll do it on Monday or Tuesday. I'll send it out in an email so that the board can review this information and hopefully get back to me with any questions before the middle of a board meeting. Okay, I understand you probably going to vote at the board meeting. That I'm fine with that. If you do it earlier, that's fine. All I'm asking is that I send this out and I get the questions back from this board and not in the middle of a board meeting. I also understand that that's what I think.
Hey, John, Doug and I were just briefly talking here. We've talked about quite a few items that we possibly could get done this year. I think what would be good for the entire board is that if we get a list of those items, the costs, and then the impact that's going to have on this, what it's going to do to our projected results through the end of the year, so that we're talking about adding a police vehicle. We're talking about this 33,000 now. I can't remember all the other items we've talked about, but it might be a good idea to itemize those things and then let us know if you want to, which ones, after you've had a chance to look at how it impacts the year-end budget, let us know which ones you think should be done, or which ones you would want to get done or don't want to get done.
Larry, Doug.
And again, the parking lot is the other thing I forgot.
Yeah, Larry, Doug, I truly appreciate that. This is what's under the flexible. Yes, I will definitely do that. I understand it. It's the way to go. To summarize it, I already have it in my head, the effects, but absolutely. You will have that. We'll have that the beginning of next week. Thank you.
Okay. Are we back to the original tennis spreadsheet?
Any other questions on tennis?
That's good. That was good. I like that.
Okay, going to platform. I'm not sure if that's the next one in your book. Again, racket sports being a platform, especially being such a small budget. They're really,
We're still finding platform here.
okay,
Hold
I'm
on.
sorry. Turn this up.
Platforms with tab
Sorry, Councilman.
13. Oh, okay. Yeah, we got it.
AJ,
We're there.
As you can see, it's such a small budget that there wasn't that many changes. Again, COVID didn't really affect the racket sports too much. It affected it in a way that we thought we could do more, but we were able to pretty much stay consistent. Where you see the negative balance in the bottom is last year, as I said in the beginning, a percentage of my salary was put into each of the racket sports, which knocked platform off a little bit from where they were there. So that's where that difference is. But otherwise, they're pretty consistent with what they've been. I don't know if anyone has any specific questions on platform.
As far as the usage of the courts over by the other pool where there's some courts over there.
Swim and racket.
And racket. Are those courts get used a lot less?
They're used by we had those resurfaced as a couple years back, and we're down to the one. And as you know, we used to have 2 tennis courts there. One is now blacktop, which I know the rec committee is in discussions on what to do in that specific area. But as far as the tennis courts there, they're used a lot by the homeowners right there. They're not really a draw for outside play as much as it's used by the immediate homes that are in that area.
Okay.
I have a question for Tim. It's sort of off the subject here, and Terry. You know, we just reconstituted the Racket Sports Advisory Committee. Have you guys had, has anyone put any do you know if anyone's put any applications in yet to be on that committee?
Yes, they have.
Okay, Brian.
yes, thank you. Colby, on the platform tennis, with all things being equal except the forecast or the proposed member dues align nice with the actuals from prior years, but the year-end forecast for 2021 is significantly less. Did you lose some members this year, or are you expecting to gain some for the new year?
Yeah, so we did have a bunch of members reach out that didn't renew their memberships this year with the pandemic, and making this, as John has stated, a normal budget, you know, assuming no COVID, we went back to getting those memberships back there, you know, because it was more of a, hey, we're going to kind of wait till we see what happens here. So our hope is that we can get that back to where it was before.
Sure. Okay, very good. Thanks.
Anybody else on platform?
Don, did you have a question? Okay. No, I think that's it for platform.
Okay, so moving on to pickleball. Get there.
All right, we're there.
Okay, when I got involved with racket sports in 2016, I was told that pickleball is the fastest growing sport, and I am here to tell you that it absolutely is. It is amazing, just the age range that's there, the participation, as Tim had said before, you know, we had about 150 people a day. I can tell you that at least 100 of those were pickleball players. It's just really growing. And just to kind of touch base, the revenue there with the special events tournament, we are anticipating, as I said, that we'll be taking over the pickleball tournament that they originally just paid us a fee for. So that will be something that's done in June. We also added this year we have a group that comes in and does clinics that people pay for. They do it twice, once in the summer and once in the fall, and we made about $4,000 on that. You only see 2,000 in here because the other 2,000 went into tennis. In the budget, they're using the tennis courts and time, so it was just split there. But that's where that increase is there. Member dues, we're confident it'll stay. We're hoping it'll grow, but we do get a lot of daily players with pickleball. Going down, not too much else has changed there, except for our revenue is growing. Our expenses really haven't increased too much with pickleball, other than as wages go up. But otherwise, it's not a very expensive sport because everyone brings their own rackets and purchases balls. So we're pretty good there. Does anyone have any specific questions on pickleball?
Yeah, George has a question.
Hi again, Colby. Looking at the pickleball and the special events and all that, we have a proposal in for additional courts at a cost of $68,000. Do you think, will that help us with other tournaments? Is that something that'll improve that, or is this 10,000 predicated on the approval of those?
No, that 10,000 is on what we have now. Yes, I do believe that with the 2 additional courts, that we will increase in revenue and our events can be larger. It's just, we don't have, there's always a wait for pickleball. And there will be more so of one when people are allowed to stand around and wait. Right now the waiting isn't as, people aren't waiting as much because you're not supposed to be kind of standing around in groups. But as we go back into normalcy, hopefully, yes, those will be utilized and will bring in additional revenue that's not projected in here because, it's not a definite at this moment.
Yeah, I understand that. Have you actually done some research on what tournaments with the additional courts would result? What kind of are there events out there that, other places have that we could look at, things such as that?
I'm going to let Terry answer because he's been doing the tournament pieces.
Our tournament is listed in a national database for pickleball tournaments, and Bob and who was on Frank Kramer told me that Ocean Pines already is one of the destination tournaments that's on the national calendar. He said that by adding those 4 permanent courts and giving us minimum of 12 playing courts, that would put us in one of the top 10 facilities of pickleball in the country. And we would be one of the tournament destinations for pickleball. So he said that he also reminded me that with the courts that they only have now, that they made $8,000 average on the tournaments that they run, their major tournament in June. He said they do that and they turn people away when they have that tournament. So we can now, by adding that 1 court, which actually turns into 4 pickleball courts, we're not turning away players, and we're adding more players within the tournament itself every time we have a tournament.
Thanks, Terry.
Well, it's a good thing where you, as you say, you have increasing revenues and flat costs. It's a beautiful thing.
Any other questions on pickleball? I want to thank Tim and Terry. They've been great. I don't know if John, you wanted to talk about the project at all now.
No, so Where am I on the screen? You have the, oh, so Kobe just asked me about the project. So, Kobe wasn't here yesterday. We did talk about the new courts, the Capitol. So I believe that BNF and several board members who are here today have all the information on it. But if you do have any questions on that, the experts are here, fire away. Also, Steve will pull out the capital sheet that he reviewed and tied up for everybody yesterday. There are some items on there for today's meeting. I think most of it's aquatics, but if anybody has any questions, as we mentioned yesterday, Steve and myself, the team's here.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you on that. And just to go back, we're going to reevaluate the memberships and the fees, and we'll discuss that with John and Steve, and then and go from there on that. So.
Okay, BNF, if there's nothing else, thank you very much. Very, very constructive. Appreciate all the input from BNF and the board members. And
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you, Colby. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you all.
Dick, are you there?
I am.
So I have a question, because Michelle is asking me. I believe that will be done before lunch, but Michelle's asking me, does she need to order everybody lunch? I don't think so, but I'm looking for input. Okay, so I see one person saying no. Dick, what say you?
Yeah, we're not going to starve. Yeah.
Okay, so no. I don't know what his answer was, but the
He
answer
said
no.
we're not going to starve.
Oh, okay. All right, so with that said, as soon as Steve tells me which tab for aquatics, because I'm struggling with this new, which is excellent, by the way.
Everybody loves it except for John.
It's
Tab
right-
number 14.
I don't have, oh, here's 14. Okay, so aquatics, Kobe and Kathleen are here. I'm going to hand off to them while I step out and tell Michelle. Kobe,
Right.
Kathleen.
Hi, everyone, again.
Good morning.
As I did with the other ones, and Kathleen is here too, I'm just going to go through and highlight a couple things that may stand out to you, and touch base on a couple things, and then we'll open it for any questions. Just to let you know, when I first started, Kathleen had a program set up for us to keep our daily statistics, which has been a huge piece of our budget every year, because we're really able to reflect back on true data. With North Star this year, she was able to pull off exact percentages of residents versus non-residents, and we had at the pools this summer, our residents were about average about 94% were the guests at our pool. So just to give everybody a little bit, I know that comes up a lot, so I just want to let everybody know that our pools this summer were about 94% of homeowners. That does include people renting in the Pines, because we do view them as staying in the Pines. So just to give you that little bit of tidbit with that as well, with the health department putting restrictions on us as everybody else. Even though the percentages of people would go up, ours was based on the size of our pool, which didn't grow magically as the percentages went up. So we were pretty much kept at a little below 50%, and our budget actually reflects the fact that we're about 48% down in revenue at our summer pools this past year. So with that being said, to revenue.
Well, if I could just jump in for a second before we get started, just to kind of set the stage here. I think aquatics is the one area where we're a lot of areas we're making a full recovery from COVID, and aquatics is not one of them, and it makes sense that we're not making a full recovery. So one of the biggest things as you go through and talk about revenue, Colby, if you could just give us some insight into how you ended up somewhere in the middle between this year's forecast and growing it by almost $300,000, but yet still quite a bit short of the budget that we put together last year. So you're somewhere in the middle as far as getting back to normal. And I guess the whole thing, whatever you can talk to us about how you feel about this, will be helpful in us being able to digest the whole budget here.
Sure, absolutely. So to start with revenues, with the member dues, as you know, last year we switched some of the membership. So we were already going to see, we got rid of the beach parking with the pool. So we're already going to see some of the decrease in that line already pre-COVID. Going into the summer, we did not have, as I said, as many memberships as before. So when we viewed next year, even though our numbers are lower, you know, this is still based on what we feel out of COVID, because we're going to have to rebuild, bringing those people back and being comfortable again with coming back to the pools. I know that Steve and John had mentioned that, you know, with food and beverage, they're expecting a rush. We're not anticipating that rush. We believe we're going to have to rebuild. You know, people are going to take a little slower to come back. So we hope we're wrong, but you know, that's our thought process. Going down, coupon cards, we did not renew any. We didn't renew any this year. We didn't know if people were going to be able to use them within the year, since they had an expiration date. So we just didn't. We didn't offer that because of that. We weren't sure if they'd be able to use it. So people were just paying when they came to the pool. We would take people's if they had them already, of course, but we just didn't renew that. Cash fees, that's the dailies. You'll actually see that our dailies are down. You know, we were down at our pools, as I said, about 48% of our normal at all of our pools. Many of our pools didn't even open until July, the end of June. So that whole month of June, although it's not a big month, it is a piece that we expect, especially if we have a nice summer. Swim classes, we're down $130,000 in just swim lessons alone. Our exercise classes, which are normally year-round, stopped in March. We had to refund, which Kathleen was quick to do in North Star along with Michelle to get all of that done on last fiscal budget, so that this fiscal year we were able to start fresh with no refunds because we didn't know. And we actually have done our programs. Normally we let people pay ahead of time, buy a significant amount of classes. This year we did it by sessions, so that if we were hit again with a closure, we wouldn't have a lot of that refund. But our swim lessons, being that they're groups of kids in the water in a bundle, it really hit us. And then private lessons, of course, we're slowly able to do some of those, but we're not anywhere near to where we are. And that's a huge, huge piece of our summer revenue right there. Our exercise classes, surprisingly, are actually doing very well. Being the fact that we are a pool that has a disinfectant and, you know, the chlorine in there, and it's deemed a safer environment, we've had a lot of people still continue with our classes. So we haven't seen as much there, but our swim lessons definitely took that hit. Food sales, we didn't have the snack bar this year. We had talked about it anyways, but we didn't have that. Vending community, that's our sodas, ice creams and stuff. We actually are doing, we did okay there, considering that we didn't really start selling those until the end of July. It was so hot that we started bringing in that vending. And then, what's the miscellaneous line, the swim team?
It's still showing up as miscellaneous in the book.
Okay, but I think we switched to this one, right? The miscellaneous line, which we had talked about switching over to swim teams, is our Ocean Pine swim team, our Stephen Decatur High School swim team, and our 4th grade swim program. And we are not seeing as great of a hit there. Kathleen has negotiated with the swim team to keep the prices that they're paying in line with the increases of cost going forward. So we've been fortunate there. We did lose out on the 4th grade swim program this year, which you know, hopefully we'll be able to reestablish as schools get back to normal. And Stephen Decatur swim team usually starts in November, and there's a possibility that they'll be starting next week. Only for a month. Only for a month though, and they're usually 3 months. So that's a little bit of a revenue hit for us too. So any questions specific to revenue that can be answered?
Yes, Colby, this is Brian. On the facility rental line, the proposed budget is significantly higher than prior years. You anticipating getting some more rentals in there?
Yeah, no, sorry. Steve just reminded me. So what we did is, if you look at miscellaneous proposed 2022, we took that out and we moved everything into facility rental because technically the swim team is renting the facility. So we just combined those two so that we wouldn't have a miscellaneous line, since sometimes that's, can be open for what is that. So we've just, thank you. That was a good question. I forgot we had done that. So.
Okay, thank you. Great.
George?
Colby, just looking at the next page, which is the expense revenue details. Under facility rental, and you have the swim team, OPST, what is that?
That's the Ocean Pines swim team. That's,
and then you have fourth grade swim program lumped together at 41K, but there's no individual breakdown there.
Yeah, and I can, sometimes it fluctuates, the average where that came from. I think I just forgot to fill it in for there. That I can break down a little bit better.
I didn't hear anything.
Colby, I'll speak up closer.
So usually the Stephen Decatur High School swim team is about 30,000, give or take, and the fees have been going up. They've been paying us annually. Like I said, Kathleen's been working on keeping that cost with, they pay an exclusive rate now and a rate when we're open, which they didn't do before. They just paid a flat rate before, but since we have to keep staff on for them to have exclusive use of the pool. Ocean Pines swim team, or excuse me, that's Ocean Pines swim team. Stephen Decatur has been averaged about 5,000, 4,000 to 5,000, and the fourth grade swim program has been about 5,000 to 6,000 in revenue. So that's that breakdown. And
okay, and just looking at the swim classes projected for the 2021 forecast, year to date we spent about 7,500, or we've made 7,500, and you're projecting 80K. Is that, obviously that's for the rest of this fiscal year, is that a good number? And what we have with COVID and everything?
One of the things that's changed with North Star, just to the classes, when people would sign up for a class previously, we would get the revenue right away. Now we're getting the revenue at the end of the class. And so I believe that this number was a little behind. We put it in, was a little behind when this draft was done. Like it wasn't caught up yet in the system, our classes that we had already had. So that number is actually higher now. So our hope going forward is that we'll be around there with the classes that we have. And we are going to slowly start bringing in some more private swim lessons. So we're hoping that's our forecast. I don't know where we are to date. I'll put December where we are to date. Yeah, I don't have it on. Anybody else on that revenue part?
Have we given any consideration? In other words, you really want to get memberships up here because that's, I guess the summer memberships are going to hit in the summertime when people are feeling good about and using the pools for that time period. But the year-round memberships, most people want to buy those come May 1st, right? They're buying those when they're doing their assessment?
No, so aquatics is the only one that actually you can buy your annual membership any time of the year and it's good for that year. So our membership revenue is spaced out throughout the whole 12 months. If someone moves here in February and they get an annual membership, they can renew it the next February. So okay. It's not just May 1 for aquatics.
Okay.
And we did that having the indoor pool being so busy in the wintertime, and people would come in and they didn't want to just buy a winter membership. They wanted one for the full year. So it's just always stayed that way because we were worried changing it to May 1 would have an impact on our winter membership population.
Okay, that's very good. Otherwise, I was going to suggest if you thought about doing something to spike interest on May 1st, but apparently somebody jumped in the summer and does it for a year. We still got them. Okay.
Excuse me, Colby, this is Brian. Quick question on the memberships. For those residents who bought year-round memberships, was any accommodation made for the fact that they couldn't use their membership during the COVID period?
Yeah, so if people lost out on March and April, 2 months, I believe it was 2 to 3 months, Ruth Ann went in and extended their membership by those months that they missed.
Oh, that's
So
nice.
we did work with people that had annual memberships because of that.
No one missed,
Yeah,
no
no
one
one-
missed anything. No interruption or no loss of service. Everybody received the full service.
Yeah.
Okay, full disclosure, I'm only asking on my wife's behalf because first time she bought a annual pool membership and really didn't get to use it. So I appreciate that info. I'll share it with her.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep. Of course.
Okay. Well, Larry, you have a question? Maybe not. Not yet. Okay. Continue on.
Okay. So going down to expenses, there's a couple factors into payroll. We actually didn't necessarily want to cut back, but we didn't gain a lot of additional staffing this year. We didn't have pools open. We had, normally at a pool, we might have to have 3 or 4 lifeguards, especially the beach club. The beach club was the pool that was down the most this year because we were only allowed to have 40 people, and that included the team working, which was always at least 3 people. So the beach club pool had the biggest summer impact this past year. So normally, swim lessons, our swim instructors, we weren't paying them. So our payroll was down significantly on those levels. I don't think there's anything else in there. Is there anyone have any questions specific on payroll?
Payroll, all these salary increases, because you have separate lines for it.
Yeah, that was left there from last year. But
Okay,
it's
so you definitely have it.
It's definitely.
I just want to make sure.
Okay. So going forward, just to touch base under our contract and supplies, our chemicals, we projected we'd still, with Sports Core open, they are down a little bit through the summertime due to the pool closures for May and June. But, that wasn't a huge significant difference where we felt it would make that much of an impact. If anything, it'll be a little lower than that. Supplies, usually with supplies, I go up every year. I went down a little bit next year because again, and supplies is everything from first aid to when we have events to the junior lifeguard program. I'm not really sure on what, we're going to be rebuilding those programs. So I didn't go up. I just went a little bit down there. Under repairs and maintenance, just to highlight the equipment line. So the equipment line are things that are under $2,000 that don't hit replacement, but that we end up not knowing we're going to have to purchase, but that we have to purchase throughout the year. This past year, we purchased AEDs, disinfectant sprayers. We had a couple pool pumps. So that's that cost. It's hard to project that cost every year because we don't know what might break under $2,000 that we have to replace. But that's that line. And the other thing I wanted to highlight was our propane gas. Kathleen, in March, when we closed Sports Core Pool to the public, turned down the heat and the Aeon unit. And actually, we kept it that way through the fall. So the reason why that's lowered for next year is because we're going to go ahead and do that again next summer because Sports Core was able to, it was warm enough with the sun coming in there that we didn't actually have to turn those heaters back on up to full blast. So we're going to continue to do that to save that cost. So that's why that's a little bit lower there. Everything else is pretty much in line with where we are. So if anyone has any specific questions for us on that.
Yeah, Larry.
Right. So, Colby, in looking at this, you're projecting a loss next year of $236,000 without a COVID adjustment in here. Is that correct?
Yes.
So my question is then, what plans do you have to try to mitigate that 236? I guess the first question should be, what are you anticipating as being, if COVID remains as it was last year, and if we are still at a, say, a 50% usage, what is your COVID projection that would have to go on top of this?
And
That's the first question.
In a separate projection.
So Larry, I'll jump in on it. Yeah, I was just going to give the numbers and you can to talk back. So the answer to your question is another 140,000, which would bring it to a loss of 380,000. All right, 170. So fine tune number. He's saying it's an additional 175,000, which equals how much?
$21.
No. How much is it in total, Steve?
175 plus 236. 400.
So they're telling me it's actually 400,000 now.
Somewhere about 400.
So a COVID loss overall of 400,000. And again, they have the history like everybody else from this year. Maybe it's a little higher than what we're projecting this year.
So pretty similar to this, pretty much close to where we are now. Our thinking is, like I said, is, to answer your question, Larry, our hope is to be able to rebuild those programs. We have additional programs that we're adding, other class ideas that we're since classes are popular, that we're trying to bring in, swim lessons. We just believe that normally in May we're full swim lesson busy, and we just think it's going to be a slow go. Hopefully we're wrong, and it's full blast. But Kathleen and I spoke, and Michelle and our team, Michelle, and we just feel that it's going to be a little bit of a rebuild. And Kathleen, I think she might want to add something to that too.
Another challenge that we have is a lot of our most gifted instructors that people go on wait lists for, they ask for, they participate in fourth grade, they participate in privates, they participate in group. A lot of them are older. They have some challenges, which I have at least 2 instructors that haven't even set foot back in the pool since all of this. And you've got, in order to generate the revenues with swim lessons, you have to have certified, gifted, dedicated people that are willing to teach. So not only will we have to rebuild the confidence of the guest coming in to utilize the facilities, Colby and I are going to be in the situation where we're going to have to rebuild the staff as well. And so we're trying to be very realistic. But like I said, I've got one person right now who's willing, physically able to do swim lessons. And we are going to have a staff deficit from teaching swimming lessons.
Listen, I understand all of that, and I don't disagree with you. The issue I have is, though, that we're talking about, with a COVID adjustment, about $400,000 loss. My question is, what plans do you have? What can you do to try to reduce that number? Have you thought about not having all the pools operational at one time, rotating opened and closed pools, which would reduce staff? Something. $400,000, even without the COVID, the 236 is a big number also. And again, I understand that you guys are exactly right, that you have to rebuild the usage here. The bottom line is that's a big number. What plans do you have in place to try to reduce that? And I understand, you'd like to increase classes and things like that. I'm not so sure that's a valid plan. So I don't know if you have anything else, or if you haven't even looked at that.
Well, we've talked about the hours of operation And just to be very honest with you, if you want us to think of absolutely nothing other than aquatics and nothing other than driving revenue in a very, very awkward time, then the greatest thing for us to do would be to have swim and racket, the yacht club, and the indoor pool open. And because, for example, to Colby's point, opening the beach club, and I understand clearly it's got a food and beverage operation, and we understand clearly that we have to be good team members. But some of the decisions and asking us what we can do to increase revenue or what our plan is, some of the decisions are out of our hands. So yes, we have discussed operational changes. And we continue to look at staffing and doing it in the most effective way possible. If all the pools are open, I think is the assumption that this budget is driven by.
Yeah, and we've already, spoken with John. In our weekend hours, we used to be open later, and now we've shortened them based on our statistics and what it shows. Our weeknight hours, we've shortened based on, what it shows. We're not staying open for one person because then you have two team members there. You got a front desk and you got a lifeguard. So we have been looking at the expense side of things, which is another area where we're really trying to cut back on there. So it's, we have talked about that
and we did it last year. Well, there was a reduction in hours at the yacht club. There was a reduction in hours at swim and racket. We didn't at points in time have the sports pool open at all. So like an 80.
You guys,
Yeah.
serious feedback on
I think that's me. But yeah, I understand all that. And I understand that, I guess the point I'm trying to make is that, as normal, the normal procedure would be to look for revenue increase. But I think you're right. I don't know that you're going to be able to do that this year. So looking at this loss, my question is, what else can you do to try to bring this number down? And there may be some hard decisions in there that I think you need to take a look at before this comes to the full board, because this is a big number.
Anyone else?
Just got an observation. If I'm a swim member next year and you decide because of COVID that you're gonna close all but one pool and rotate them, and there's gonna be a limit on the number of people allowed in that pool, I'm gonna be a little annoyed if I can't get into the pool.
Well, how
So I
did
don't
we,
know what other options you have, but yes, I know it makes sense to try to cut expenses by rotating the pools, and you have less lifeguards and all that, but you're really going to get your members whatever members you have upset if they can't get to swim, even though it is open.
and how we tried to address that last year to be
along
fair.
those lines, John, it does make for some tough decision-making because you're betting on a COVID rebound. And when is that going to happen? Well, it could happen anytime. And if it happens as summer's just beginning, you want everything full board to handle that. Or if you make decisions ahead of time that'll impact that, you could really cut your revenue out. Yeah, no, there isn't. There's no easy answer, but I agree with Larry. It's good to do some contingency planning and just have some different assumptions and different models that said, here are some things to discuss and consider.
Yeah, and we can certainly look at
Those are all
that.
good questions to ask.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Weird, sorry. Certainly look at those show what, if we close beach club for the summer, this is the impact, and or if we close this pool, this is where we could, so we can certainly have those examples to show. I will say that every pool reached its capacity, so it wasn't a lack of people not wanting to come. It's just that we weren't allowed to have any more. So, Yacht Club was only down 14% from the previous year, which really isn't that, and we were turning people away. So, a lot of our hands were tied with that. Hopefully, I will say that in doing budgets, for me personally, I try and pick as close to a realistic number and projecting the future. I know we all do that, but we could try and be higher in areas, but we're just going on our opinion on what we've heard from the community in regards to coming back. And so our hope is that we're wrong and we make more, and we're going to do everything we can to rebuild the programs that are now down and lost for us because of COVID. We're hoping that we're back to full 100% capacity with people. I don't see the pools filling being an issue because, like I said, we were able to fill those. It's just, we just don't have any clue. We just don't know. As John always said, there's no playbook for COVID. We're just trying to, when I first started 7 years ago, aquatics was about $250,000 to the negative, and we had to rebuild it. And prior to all the parking changes, we almost got to break even. So I do believe we can rebuild it again. I'm not afraid of that. I just don't think it's going to happen in one summer. I think it's going to be something that we're going to have to build back up. People will get more comfortable coming out and that kind of thing. Oh, and I'm going to tell you all, Kathleen's going to tell you all what a cat controller is.
Oh, wait, let's just finish this and then we're going to go on to the capital. So let them finish this, but
Yeah,
that
so-
is funny though.
John, the one question about members, what Colby and I have always done is to try to make sure that with membership comes privilege. And we did make sure that
Before you,
the
I think
open.
Brian had a question. Maybe it's a carryover.
Yes, I can't hear me.
Brian?
No question, Dick, sorry.
Can you all hear us? Could you hear Kathleen? She was just speaking.
No.
You didn't, okay, but you hear me?
Yes.
Right, Kathleen. I'm sorry, Kathleen, go ahead. Let me move it towards Kathleen.
So what I was saying is that Colby and I have always tried to make sure, to the point about membership, that with membership, it has privileges. So we did have, for example, the yacht club pool was open for a period of time, first thing for members only. That at the other pools, you have a priority coming into the pool with a membership. And I personally think that drove, when people saw how we were handling things at the pool and that there was a membership privilege, I think that made memberships a popular thing, because of the people that did want to use the yacht club or they did want to use swim and racket, that they wanted to make sure that they had that punch card that they could check in and be recognized as a member, and the privileges that came with membership. I just wanted to clarify that we do try to make sure membership has privileges.
Okay.
That's funny. That's good.
Any other questions on the operational piece?
No, I don't. Any other questions?
So just in summary, we have sign off from BNF. Everything has been explained to BNF from this aquatics team. They explained to you the separation between the COVID adjustment and their operational, that there is kind of, they may not come back right away. That has been made clear to BNF. Every line item, everything was reviewed and basically is signing off. So with that, thank you, everybody. We do want to do the capital. Steve did go through it yesterday. There is some for aquatics, and we have the experts here. So let's go through that now. Steve, what section and what page number?
Section 23, capital.
Excuse me, gents, are we gonna look at the beach parking before we move on to reserves?
Yes, Brian, excellent. Kobe just, yes.
Go ahead, Brian.
As soon as you said it, Kobe had mentioned beach parking. Go ahead, Kobe. We could go that route, that's fine. What section there? 19.
Section 19.
Yep, she's got it.
One other thing, before we go into that, our changes in the coupon card. One other thing, in regards to aquatics, Kathleen and Ruth Ann and I got together and spoke about the weeklies, the 3-day and the coupon cards. And right now, the current cost for a weekly is $165 for a family of 4, and we're proposing to bring that up to $200 for a weekly. And then the 3-day we left at $85, and then the coupon cards. The only change we're suggesting is non-residents going from 45 to 55 for adults and 35 to 45 for children. And this coincides with the fact that we brought up the non-resident daily rate last year, but we didn't change this. So it still saves them $1 instead of, on the non-residents instead of a few dollars. So that was another piece I just wanted to point out before we moved on to beach parking.
That was swim. That was swim.
Yeah. Parking, same thing. We didn't see with parking, you're parking your car and you're going on the beach. And I just think it possibly could be a little bit of a slower going into next summer, bringing people back. Because of the spacing, I'm just think it could be a slow go. That's where that difference is. And again, it's just my suggestion. Of course, it doesn't have to stay that. If someone or John or Steve, the board, BNF feels differently, it's just my thought that it'll take a good summer for us to rebuild before we get back to our full potential at the beach.
So I'm sorry, Barbie, I was just getting a text. I heard you say my name. Just say again what you want me to say.
No, I was just stating that if this number needed to change based on, your thoughts or the board or the GM, if it needed to be higher, that was just my thought, that it would take a little bit of time to grow. Nothing else really changed on.
I also think that it's affected by they can't get into the pool either.
Yeah, and Kathleen just made a good point. Another piece was but some people would park there to use the pool. So that number was down too, because we, can only have 40, which is probably a third, of what we can normally have. So, it's hard to say. That number could probably go up a little bit if otherwise, but that's just, I do think no matter what, it'll be a little bit of a slow start. I think this summer, even if we're out of COVID, it'll be a slow return, at least a good summer. Just opinion. I don't know for certain.
This is one of those ones that I've mentioned before, that I just wonder how many people who who didn't buy their parking pass on May 1st and come time to pay their assessment and buy it on 8/1, how many just said, well, the heck with it, the summer's almost over, and be gone with it. So if there is a number of people falling in that category, you should see in a COVID rebound. I mean, the yacht club is looking at having a positive rebound here. It's particularly the beach, where you're just parking and you're outside and you're distancing yourself. I would expect that beach parking rebound.
Right. And another piece in the budget this year, which affected aquatics too, is we got rid of the parking pass with the pool membership. So that was a piece that we no longer offer in here. And so that was that revenue is not included. I don't know what that impact would have been, because we didn't have a normal summer, but that impacted both aquatics and beach club parking, more aquatics, but a little bit there too.
So, and in your aquatics, you rebounded a bit more from this year's bad year than you are in beach parking. So aquatics, you made a bigger revenue movement towards last year's budget. Here you backed off a little bit. You didn't have the same percentage movement. So your aquatics, you're more felt better about increasing revenues, and you feel a little bit less about increasing revenues here. Part of it might be what you just referred to, Colby. I guess I would have thought the revenue call could have been a little higher here.
Yeah, and again, it certainly can be, you know, you're throwing everybody on the beach. It's just gonna, I think crowds are still gonna be hesitant, but, you know, beach parking was a hard one, to be honest. I just.
And the pool was a really big draw.
Yeah, the pool's a big draw, and I think that's gonna be a slow start, you know, depending on what we do with the pool, with the beach club. So again, that's why it's just a thought. It can certainly, I definitely wouldn't go lower. But if it needed to be raised up higher, I mean, it would, with parking, it wouldn't make me nervous if it needed to go up a little bit. I don't think it's going to be comparable to what we wanted it to be last year, but I think it will, it may not be that low.
Okay.
So, hey, Kobe, I'm sorry, because I'm actually getting some questions on the text from somebody in there. So when I hear, and correct me, Kathleen or Kobe, when I hear that with the restrictions and everything, you're at capacity with the pools, correct? So the response to somebody that's asking me for another option on maybe swimming / parking or whatever, if we were at maximum to begin with the programs we have, and if there is a situation and that's one of the pools they're looking at possibly closing, I'm not totally sure if I can put another option right now. So that's, Kathleen's nodding yes. So that's my answer to that. I appreciate the feedback. It's an excellent question. I've gotten it several times. So I think I answered that. Of course, I'm looking today for BNF. The second part, Kobe had mentioned to me, what you just said before, BNF or me, what we think or what I think about this situation. And of course, you know, I'm going to repeat it 1,000 times. There's no playbook. But if you're asking, I'll tell you on my end, it may be different than my team. They're the experts. They are the experts. And I don't have a crystal ball. One thing I could tell you is this. I truly believe that once this thing is over, and you know, we could sit here all day discussing that, they're going to come back in droves. And I'm talking in general. I'm not talking about aquatics. They're the experts. In general, I truly believe that, and especially a place like Ocean City, Ocean Pines, just like after 9/11, because they can make the accommodations quick as opposed to going to the Caribbean or anywhere else that they go, which is what we saw after 9/11. So that's my feedback on it. They're the experts. I don't have a crystal ball. This is what we're presenting. It's BNF's time to give feedback. I hear Dick saying that maybe, and let's go back to that. I want to hear the rest of you on the beach parking.
Doug, get your hand up.
So I'm sort of going to agree with both Dick and John. I think there's some optimism that we can share with the fact that the customers can come back. Remember, last year, I know we ran into several circumstances where people had elected to defer their payment in full of their assessment, you know, because we gave them that option. That also prevented them from buying into the amenity. In other words, if you did not have your assessment paid in full, you couldn't go ahead and buy the pool pass. So I wonder how many, we certainly know that a number of people were affected by that with that condition, unless something changes drastically with that condition not existing in this upcoming budget and, you know, and the options for payment that, you know, we certainly would have some sort of rebound. You know, that lifting the restrictions on the capacities in the pool, and then just the overall sense of the fact that the COVID may be on the downside. I would certainly not want to overinflate that number, but you know, certainly I think that you know, cautiously optimistic to say that the you know, the number should rebound a little bit over time, especially perhaps later in the summer, in the July-August timeframe, and not so much in May and June. But just an FYI.
Okay. George, you have a comment?
Just the parking lease, 134 versus 71. That's the Secrets lease, I'm assuming?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so what we're saying that this year we'll get the full 134 versus our discounted rate last year for them.
No,
Correct?
George, it's an excellent question. I didn't want to get into it, but I can tell you what we did. We stayed with the full moon. we stayed with the full amount. Excellent question.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I
I have a
guess,
question, Dick.
yeah, go ahead, Joe.
What's the $3,000 equipment under repairs and maintenance? What's that for?
That's
I'm
the
just
same
curious.
thing. No, that's okay. That's the same thing. If, something goes up, that's under 2,000 that we need to replace or fix, that's just there in case that comes up.
So I guess on revenues, you guys are the experts there. I would just say, just give it some thought going forward. If after some further thought, you think that it makes sense to move it up a little bit, fine. If you think it should be where it is, well, that's what the budget is. So I just ask you to reconsider, giving that some thought about beach parking and a potential spike that the 5-1 membership may cause.
Okay.
Just an observation, wait a minute, John, just an observation. To go along with Doug's point, if you look historically, the parking only way back in 2018 was $40,000. In 2020, it was 158. And if you look at the parking with membership, it went from 137 down to 108, down to 47 in the current budget. So it appears that you have more parking only dramatically. And I guess that's in part a result of maybe like reduced membership in some of the other amenities. So people are just getting the parking. Just an observation there, but you can look at the trend.
And John, I'm glad to hear that observation. I got to be honest with you, I see it the same way. I saw it the same way even before I came into this building. You never know when you're on the outside, but that's the way I'm leaning, is what you said. And yeah, the other thing when we built this, or when I looked at this and everything, at the beginning of the pandemic, I know we reviewed everything and we reviewed aquatics. I know the CFO at the time put out a projection number, and it looks like that CFO at the time was pretty accurate on what the number would be for aquatics. So with that said, and coming into this, I look at it the same way, in the sense that we, as an association, we, defined as the board, decided to go forward with the recommendations from this aquatics team and us. So building this budget, I looked at that the same way. So if you go back to the beginning of today, if you go back to my words when I started, there's obviously hard calls need to be made. We've made them. Maybe we haven't, maybe we have, but we've taken it that this is an amenity. That was the policy. That was what had my understanding from the board. And we marched that way. And I believe we continue to march that way. But I just want to make that clear. We've put everything out there. It's bottoms up, expert driven. It's all laid out. The team, this team, everybody here did their job. My understanding is we've gotten the guidance from BNF to go forward. And that's what I will do until I hear something else.
Okay.
John O'Connor, I misstated. So the equipment line, I forgot. I had to look back through my notes and confirm with Steve. The equipment line in the beach parking is for a beach mat. It's a handicap beach mat. And so when you come out onto the beach, there's a huge portion of just sand, and the mat takes you up to the dune. So people that have trouble walking in the sand, handicap accessible, that kind of thing, it will help them to get up to the dune, which is harder. So that's what that is in there. It's a beach mat. The town of Ocean City, I've been talking with them. They have a few throughout Ocean City that have been very popular, and we get a lot of over the years, there's been comments about people struggling with getting over that. So that's going to help with that piece.
Okay, thank you very much. Dick, anything else? So oh, I see a question somewhere.
Just a general observation. I think the trend is going to continue, and you've heard this, you only pay for what you need. Memberships may fall behind a little bit, but you may have more people going in for daily or weekly in our amenities. That's the way I see it.
Okay. I don't know about golf, but I hear you, and you're probably right in certain circumstances, yes.
One other thing on beach parking, Ruth Ann and Kathleen and I in our discussions, we talked about the annual parking with no membership price, moving it from 180 to 200. So I believe what you have is the proposed price, not what it currently is. The annual parking with the membership, so that's someone who has a golf, pool, racket center membership, we kept at 125. We moved the weekly with the pool. So if you get a annual parking, or excuse me, a weekly beach or pool pass, a weekly pool pass for your family, you can add a weekly parking pass for 75. It's currently 60. We raised that to 75. And then it came up about possibly adding, Ruth Ann brought this up, I thought it was a great idea to discuss, a standalone weekly. So right now with Beach Club parking, you can only get a weekly parking pass with a weekly pool pass. And that in our discussions, we talked about maybe adding a standalone weekly parking pass for 135. So that would be a new option for people that come in, because we have the daily and then we have the weekly with pool. That was just something that we brought up to discuss. So I just wanted to throw those in there since we were still on beach parking.
Okay, Colby, thank you. Any other questions on beach parking or aquatics in general? Great.
Okay, thank you very much. We're going to move on to the capital summary. That's section 23, page 1. This is what Steve went through yesterday. We have the experts here. I know there was something about a cat walker or a cat controller, and I can tell you we're not walking cats, but Colby, Kathleen, just jump in and explain the roughly, I don't know, $50,000 worth of capital.
Okay, so I'll let Kathleen explain the cat controller to you.
Cat controller is the computer that reads the ORP or chlorine and the pH at the pools. They're located in the pump room, which is it's a very, very rough area on equipment due to the liquid chlorine and the muriatic acid. The assumption is with 5 pools that typically we have 1 cat controller replacement per year. Basically, layman's term, it's the brain that reads the chlorine and reads the muriatic acid and then feeds the chemicals that are required into the pool.
Yeah, and you guys are seeing these things on here this year because, as you remember, before it was a $5,000. It didn't hit this budget, this page until it was over 5,000, and now it's over 2,000. So we have still been getting these things every year, replacing them. It's just now they're hitting this because they're over 2,000. So the Mumford's roof, Kathleen's already gotten the 3 bids on that. So that is a firm price at 16,000. The roof is, the shingles are coming off. It's just time that we replace that before it gets any worse. That's what that is. The pool furniture, 5 pools. We're actually doing a huge savings in our pool furniture. What we're doing now, except for umbrellas, which are purchased new, is a few years back, Kathleen worked really hard on with a vendor that is actually replacing, taking our old furniture and restrapping it, you know, anything that we're able to replace. So we're getting longevity out of that, and we save, what, like $150 per chair.
A
on
lounge,
that.
a lounge chair, it's $150 per lounge chair over purchasing new.
So we're actually down, we're going down in our furniture costs since we were, you know, 5-6 years ago because of the we're actually taking our old furniture and refurbishing that. If you see the navy blue furniture at the pools, that's what those are. They're actually, the frame is the same frame we had previously, and it's just restrapped. So that's been a really big savings there. The fiberglass doors at the beach were actually in the budget this year. We didn't get a chance to do it with us opening late there and whatnot. So we just put them back in so that we can get it done going into the summer. The HVAC unit, sports core pool, that'll be done in-house by Butch Kennedy, our electrician, but that's the cost to replace it. The AC in the women's bathroom has been broken, and it gets really hot in there in the summertime. So we just need to have that replaced. The handicap chair lift, 5 pools, we redo them each year. That again goes in line with the cat controller. Vacuum replacement, when we upgraded Sports Core Pool, they took our vacuum unit, they used it for the slide. So we need a heavy duty vacuum there, because we clean that consistently. So that's what that one is for. I'm gonna let you talk on the inverter. The handicap stairs at Swim and Racket, we were able to get through another summer. We had actually put them in last year because it usually takes a good time to get those in. With the summer, we were able to get through and wait. So that's in there so that we can get that ordered and have it not by this summer, but by the following summer, because it takes time to get those rebuilt. And then I'm gonna let Kathleen on the inverter, because she's my pump room. She knows the most about the pump room.
The inverter's the same thing with 5 pools, and it's extremely hot in the pump rooms. And the inverter just basically makes sure the motors have a lot of power going to them. The inverter makes sure that the power does not immediately, when you turn the pump, go straight to the motor. It brings it up slowly, and we lose one every year. It's hot in there. There's a lot of chemicals, and we just replaced one last year. And again, we're seeing it because now it's things that are $2,000. There's certain things in the pump room you're going to rotate through, and we need to make sure that we also have some equipment that's available so that we don't run the risk of having a pool that goes down when it's high season.
Okay, you can see they're vital pieces of equipment. BNF, what say you?
George has a question.
Yeah, and looking at it, there's a capital project worksheet here for beach access maps. And it says 10,000 for 2. And Colby, you were just talking about the mats at 3,000
I'm sorry.
on the beach parking there. Is this something different, or what is this that in this capital project worksheet here? Page 2 under tab 23. It's also not listed on the capital summary.
Right.
That was my my initial thought was to do 2 mats across the beach there, and we're gonna just start with 1 to see how receptive it is, and I actually was able to find it for a lower cost.
I think the question is that it's not on the summary sheet. Is that correct? Besides asking what it is, but am I correct, George? It's not on the.
Yeah, it's on the summary sheet, and also the 10,000 versus the 3,000 that Colby talked about, you know.
I just answered that part.
Yeah,
We decided to put it in.
It's not on the summary.
It's not.
It's my fault for attaching the capital sheet. I had the big stack of sheets and I included it in there. We yanked it from the capital. But I guess your question, George, is why was it 5,000 apiece and now it's 3,000 in the operating?
Yeah, Colby answered that, yeah.
Okay, all right.
A little confused when I looked at it, what was going on. Thank you.
My apologies for, I should have yanked that page.
Okay, I think there are no other questions on aquatics and the capital associated with aquatics and the capital spreadsheet itself. So I think we're okay.
Great, and I took from this, from all of you, I'm going to revisit with John and Steve the revenue at beach parking, and from Larry, Kathleen and I are going to meet and talk about options, you know, that we might be able to add in lowering costs, or, you know, if we had to close a pool or whatnot. So we'll have those when we meet again with the board, so.
I think you got one more. Hold on 1 second. Kobe's got to, she's got to talk about flood program. Yeah. See, actually, Steve
We've got Bainbridge, I guess, right? Yeah.
You're good. Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, so, you know, the other item on today's list was the Bainbridge project, and anything else, I mean, that the pipes, the drainage and all that is handled by Public Works. Colby is in charge of the special project Bainbridge project, which just right off the bat, and I don't want to take from her, but there's nothing in this budget for that. Everything is in the current budget, but she did ask for, and I'm going to let her jump in, something on drainage. So Kobe, you got the flood program or whatever.
We'll talk about that. So as everyone, and I know John has said numerous times over the last couple of days, that drainage is a priority, and I think everybody agrees with that. In visiting with homeowners over the last year, when they have had issues with flooding in their backyards and flooding around their homes, which is really bad, we discussed about possibly doing similar to kind of our bulkhead program, a flood program. So you have homeowners that have flood issues where we don't own an easement. So the initial thought is, well, it's not Ocean Pines' problem because we don't own an easement, but it's still a problem in general, because we want to make sure that the homeowners have, you know, whatever we can offer them. So in talking right now, I have about 14 homeowners on my list that have reached out with flooding problems. I've been working closely with Maryland Coastal Bays because we're looking at opportunities for grants to help those homeowners. And this summer I met with John and Larry and Doug and Steve Tuttle and Steve Phillips, and we talked about this program and the importance of it. And the thought process behind it was, so I'm going to use an example. You have 5 homeowners and they have standing water behind their home that never goes away. It's mosquitoes, it kills the trees, which is where Maryland Coastal Bays comes in, because it's suffocating the trees. That actually is a benefit to bringing in other opportunities to possibly help with the problem. But there's nowhere for the water to go. So some of those areas, there's options that can help possibly, some of the areas there's not. Some of the areas there's options that possibly can help relieve some of that water from standing there. But the idea was that we would work with the group of homeowners. Everyone has to be on board because we don't own an easement. So we would work with the group of homeowners on seeing if there was a possible solution. And they would have to forefront costs to do the project. And once the project was complete, then Ocean Pines would reimburse out of this flood program the engineering and permitting fees back to the homeowners to give them a little piece of support there once the project was done. So back in, hold on, let me pull something up to share with you. Eddie actually found something, I thought I had it in here, that there was actually a flood program established back in, I want to say it was the late 90s, he found some old paperwork that they had tried to do this before and it just kind of went away. So we found this after we had already started this. So it's really just a discussion point because I am putting together a presentation for FEMA with Maryland Coastal Bays to hopefully help some of these homeowners with their flooding issues. It's not an overnight fix by any means, but I do find it important enough that if there's something that we can do on our end to help, so that's where that stems from. So it's an early phased project. And I compared it to the dredging because what homeowners do is they submit an application for dredging and then we have that funding. So I thought people could submit, you know, if this starts to move forward, they could submit their issues. We could see if it's something that we're able to guide them. It would really be a lot of guidance. I'm willing to take that on with the homeowners, is guiding them through the process. Again, it would be a cost to the homeowners to do the project. Ocean Pines piece would be guiding them through the process, and then the possibility of that engineering and permitting fees reimbursed to the homeowners. So there's a lot of pieces behind it, but there are willing participants with the county and Maryland Coastal Bays on seeing what we can do to do something instead of nothing at all. So that was a lot of information. Does anyone have any questions on that?
Colby, I'm not seeing any hands popping up, but that was good. A lot of good information. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, John just stepped out to go to the men's room, so I think that was all we needed to cover on the capital sheet, right?
I think so. I think we hit all the other parts. So when John gets back, I think we can recap. And I have some input on recapping here.
Yeah.
Anybody else you need to use facilities? Let's take 5 minutes and do that. Was that Larry? Larry moved back. Larry, you don't like us? You left us? You went
No.
back?
So I had it on mute. Hold on. Go ahead, Larry.
I've got another contract to review, so I'm going to do that while I'm sitting here.
All right. Okay. So I think
Okay. Dick,
bring it
that's-
back here. So John, Brian's been doing Brian, you're still online? I think you are. I'm not seeing the whole picture.
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Okay. Brian's been doing a stand-up job taking minutes. So we've got 2 days worth of minutes, which equate to 5 pages. And so I suspect when we're done adding the other 2 days, we're going to probably have about 10 pages of minutes. And the minutes include, questions that were asked, comments, suggestions, some action items, recommendations, things like that. I think, Brian, maybe when we put together all of the minutes and BNF here reviews it, it may make sense that we kind of just highlight the things that we want to stand out when people read this. That being said, I encourage John and Steve in particular, but the board even more so, that when they get these 10 pages, that they do read it carefully and digest it, because the board's going to sit down and review the budget for 2 days. A lot of the things in there that we asked or observed, there's 4 board members that didn't participate, that we observed and commented on. It certainly should help anybody who's going to sit down and review a budget with you again. You don't want to, if you can avoid having the same question asked over again and answered again by just simply referring and reading something, it's a good thing. So we encourage, when this is all said and done, that everybody kind of reflect on this and read it carefully. We'll try to make it as concise as possible so certain things stand out, but it will be a good document.
Dick, can I add a few comments?
Sure, absolutely.
So the minutes so far are from my scribbly notes that I took during the meeting. On Wednesdays, which I'm just a bit, no, I'm sorry, yesterday's, which I'm mostly through. I did start to highlight things like action items and follow-up items and so forth. So I am going to try to do that. But my main point is I want to look back through the videos that Josh has posted because there's so much to digest. And I know I missed stuff and everyone else is going to have hopefully things to add that they may have picked up on. I guess I'd like to know when we're going to, review the minutes. Can we have, the weekend to prep up
Yes.
the rest of the minutes and then get something to you early next week?
Can I jump in?
You certainly can. Yeah, John, just 1 second.
Thank you.
Certainly can. And what I would do first, Brian, is I would not subject yourself to going through all these hours and hours of videos again. You can fast forward and do certain things, but maybe just go with what you have so far as a first pass. And then as a team, we're going to look at that and review it. We're going to probably add some things that maybe we think should be added. And then, then in conjunction, you can also be reviewing those videos again if you want. But as a first pass, we could be looking at it, and maybe it'd also save you some time as far as looking at all that stuff again.
Okay, understood. Yeah, I wasn't going to look at every minute. I did, highlight some time stamps where I wanted to go back and try to clarify what I wrote. So yeah, I'm not going to be spending the whole weekend looking at the meetings from end to end.
Okay. Yeah, John, jump in.
Okay, thank you, Dick. And first of all, Brian, I've read your minutes over the last several months. They're excellent, very good.
Thank you.
When you're talking 10 pages, I get it. And I think I heard summary. What I was going to ask for was an executive summary. It sounds like you gentlemen are going to do that. I would hope that there's an executive summary, but within that executive summary, what I call the pluses and minuses, I would appreciate that somehow, even if it's just one little attachment to that executive summary, a plus and minus on the recommendations on how it affects the assessment. That's similar to what I did in the past, and then it's clear to everybody as opposed to going through the necessary 10 pages of attachment, which is fine. As far as the timing, yeah, I'm not looking for it today. In the past, sometimes it happened today, usually happened by the Monday. I hear what you're all saying. I think you as a team need to look at it. All I'm asking is that I think Tuesday would be the latest realistic date. Keep in mind, my team has a lot of work to do with this thing. It's not just a one-pager. It affects hundreds of pages. And we're looking at stuff. I already have them working on items now. So is the Tuesday realistic? If not, please call me, let me know. But that's what I would hope for. If you also want to do this, as opposed to just sending me a 10-page document and an executive summary, if you want to set up a Teams meeting, if not, that's fine too. I'll make myself available and any team members that you deem necessary to be on that. Okay.
So okay, John. So Brian, I think if we have your first pass at everything, I think we should digest it, and then we should call a meeting amongst ourselves to go over it and basically read it through and make any changes, and we should be able to finalize it.
Okay, I like I said, I'm mostly through yesterday's, and today's was obviously shorter, so I fully expect I would have the rest out by the end of the COB today.
So if you were going to work through that over the weekend, let's say, we could maybe set a time on Monday if it works for everybody, and we could have an hour or more or so, or hour and a half, whatever it takes, to go through it jointly and reach a final version, if you will.
Yeah, that was my feeling, that we would need a little follow-up meeting between the committee to.
Does a phone call amongst, or a Teams meeting on Monday make sense for everybody? Work? Okay.
Yep.
In that case, John, then we can have something, we should be able to have something due by Tuesday. If for some reason there's a problem, we'll let you know.
Okay, keep in mind, I got to go forward. We have a voluminous effort in front of us, but I do appreciate that. And like I said, I'm very impressed with the work that's come out in those minutes from Brian and whoever else is doing them.
Well, he's got some good minutes here, and you'll reflect, and it'll remind you of things. It'll be a good draft notes of what took place, and it helps spur some action items, things like that.
Yeah, let me reiterate, they're very rough notes. Dick, I know you wanted to get some draft notes out quickly, so there is definitely stuff in there that needs some fine tuning and reviewing, and I'll count on everybody to help with that.
So I'd like to talk about the recap that John was asking for, and we fully intended to have a recap. He's laid out some numbers on day one that had an assessment increase, a working papers potential number of an increase of 121. So we're going to have some comments that are going to give our opinion as to where we think we should be heading on certain items. Some items we've already agreed to, like the Ocean Pines bulkheads, reducing that a little bit to 15 was helpful. I guess one of the things that BNF has talked about all along was that any kind of surplus we have this year, we were in favor of paying back the deficit off the balance sheet to clear that up and clean that up. I think that was about 167 grand. Is that right, Steve, what we have on the balance sheet?
Yeah, that's correct. It's in that ballpark, 167. Steve mentioned that the other day. I don't know why I have 186 in my head, but at this point, you're safe to say that number.
BNF, we haven't talked about this at great length, but I suspect BNF's opinion is that what surplus we can carry forward, would be would help next year's budget.
All right, Dick, and that, you throw out that number, and I take a sigh every time I hear it, and that's a working document. There are other pieces that I have put on the table that I would appreciate and respect if BNF addresses them. The pieces I put on there, the offsets to those numbers that I don't have the authority on, but I believe we can use. One of them being the favorability, among other items that I've listed over the last couple of days. I would hope that you would give guidance on that, because again, putting a number there at this time in this working document, there's other pieces here that need to be decided.
Understand.
And I would hope that you address that. Okay.
One question: if we have a surplus in the current year, and the current year is not over, and you don't know what's going to happen, you got to have a budget in February. Can you apply that potential forecasted surplus to your budget for the next year?
So we addressed that last year, and we said no, but we were confident in the piece for the operating deficit, and we utilized that, and we didn't include it. But again, that's a decision that it's not necessarily putting the number, but saying, hey, we're comfortable with this. It's almost like we didn't fund it, but we did. I would not say to use, $600,000. Now, there's a way to explain. I see a head bobbing back and forth. There is a way to doing it and a way not to do it, obviously. But if you feel strongly that, and you state in no way should we look or anticipate at the end that this money possibly would be there, then so be it, and state that. I'm just looking for feedback and guidance, whether it's BNF or the board. If the answer is that you're not comfortable with it, and again, what that means is that you're just then recommending a budget assessment that may not cover everything, that you may feel that you could at another day. So if the answer is no, the answer is no. Just put it in that email, that letter. If it is that you feel that certain items that, maybe if we did have a deficit or whatever, then so be it.
Well, clearly you can move on applying it to a deficit and make that recommendation, but that has nothing to do with this budget. So if you ended up with a forecast, still a positive forecast of, let's say, 400,000 after you took care of a deficit, after you took care of the deficit on the balance sheet. What I hear you saying is that when you prepare a budget in February, that's not a tangible item.
Correct.
Okay.
However, but correct. I just need you to comment on it.
Okay.
I know what I'm going to do in 7 weeks.
And then we also talked about the new capital in this budget, the $232,000 for new capital. The money is not there because the inference was that it was going to be used for the new capital fund. What I heard yesterday was that potentially, if we move forward with these items and the board blesses them in the current year, and they're assigned as projects, that given given the board's authority and given the way that the new capital program is written, there's an opportunity for the board to basically say that I approve, I like those projects, and we can take that, some of that new capital money, or I think I heard 170 grand of it, potentially, and apply that to the projects that are on the books here proposed for next year. If that was the case, there's still a deficit that needs to be handled because you have 232 and potentially 170 to work with, so you still have some more money to make up there. If all those new projects were to survive.
So
that's
what I'm
a-
hoping to do with, oh, sorry,
that's the-
Dick, I thought you were done on that, but go ahead.
But that's something else that needs to be quantified and recommended in some way.
Right, so that piece, I don't know what else to say that I didn't say yesterday. I'm asking the board to be flexible on that. I'm also looking into what I believe I heard Larry say yesterday, is can I do that work today? We are working on that as we speak. If I can get that solidified, there is a very good possibility that I can come forward to the board with that this year. The board, if the board is interested in entertaining that, obviously, I totally believe we can cover it this year. So with that said, that's what we're looking at from this end. But yeah, anything else that you want to clarify?
Likewise, if you address the racquetball courts and the tennis courts, the $33,000 that we're saying is maintenance, if that wasn't addressed, that would have to become part of the budget next year. If you address that this year, it's obviously comes out of your money this year or lowering your surplus. So it becomes a budget event we don't have to think about.
Yes, sir. And that's what we're doing. Tim assured me that we can do it now. He's triple checking. I fully intend to come forward to the board on the 20th with that because they have the numbers. Yes, sir.
Okay. And I guess then there is the subject as far as moving some reserve money. And we heard Larry speak about his preference on doing that. But that's a bucket there that potentially something.
Right, Dick. So when I was in your seat, I did not agree with doing that kind of stuff. What I've asked is, and look, I just need you to comment on it, or your team. What I'm asking is, with everything going on, with where I believe we will be next year, it's possibly something that could be looked at, entertained, but right now, honestly, that's for you and your team to comment on it, and then obviously the board. I'm just putting options out there. I'm just spelling it all out, and I'm trying to remember that word balance, where I'm just looking at, balance over the next couple of years. But that's, that's for you to comment on as your team and then the board. I'm fine with whatever you all decide.
Okay. And then a lot of the other items which we're going to talk about are really, there's not much you can do. If you think that employee medical is going to be X, well, hopefully it's not. It's better, but you plan on X. Payroll, that's it. It's going to increase. If you're property and
May I
capital.
ask a question on that? Can I go step by step on what you're saying? Because I think this is excellent what you're doing. When you talk about the medical, when you talk to the salaries, and I guess I never asked this, and this is on me. We projected and we put forth a 3% increase. Is your BNF team saying that they're okay with that?
I think your increase is actually less because when you have your mandatory increase for minimum wage and your overall is 3%, you're working off of something less, I think, aren't you?
That may not be the case this year. I'm looking for an overall pool of 3%. A lot of it's statutory. I mean, the statutory increase, Steve or Kobe, if you can just tell me, I think it's more than 3%.
But I guess I'm talking about if you're jumping, if the minimum wage is going up considerably, your merit pool is probably less than 3%.
That's the correct statement.
Yeah. So and that doesn't seem, George, does that seem like that doesn't seem out of line to me. What's your thought?
Well,
Between 2 and 3% merit.
For the merit?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be good. But what are you saying, that the 75 cents that the minimum wage is going up is included?
He's budgeted total salary increase of 3%, which includes the mandatory minimum wage increase.
Includes that.
Yeah, yeah, that's less. Yeah. I don't think that number is unreasonable. No.
Thank you, Dick. I'm just going to ask our controller to comment on it since he did the calculations, which included the minimum wage. Steve?
Yeah, so the $100,000 that you have on the salary walk, Dick, is full-time. So roughly $100,000 and change. The minimum wage adjustments were reflected in the budgets. You know, so Colby, there's a handful of amenities, you know, that have those increases built in. So if you mess with the 3%, it obviously affects the $100,000. Yeah.
Did Steve answer your question, Dick?
I'm not sure.
Neither am I.
Yeah, the 3% is on just full-time employees. So the $100,000 that you have there is for the full-time employees.
Okay, so then he's saying it's two separate pools. The minimum wage is broken out separately.
So you have a 3% pool. Minimum wage, you got-
Minimum wage you're gonna have is part-time and seasonal. So that's why it's not that affected by it.
So it's a blend. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay, so that's really the right answer. It's a blend. Some of it is and some of it isn't. I think out of the 3%, the 110,000, I think he told me when I asked him before we went into this a week or two ago that around 25,000 is for the minimum wage increase, but he distinguishes some of it is in there and some of it's just built into the budget. Okay,
So what he's saying is there's a 3% merit pool for salaried employees.
pretty much.
Okay. I still don't think that's unreasonable.
Maybe a little less than the 3, but pretty much, yes. Might be a little less, Dick, but it's nothing for us to go back and forth on now, the way he did it. Thank you for that. I just heard you gave the answer that BNF feels that we're, okay. All right, good. Go ahead, keep going the way you're going. I like it.
So anyway, we'll come back with our thoughts on some numbers there.
Okay. All right, then with that said, Colby does want to give an update on the Bainbridge project. Keep in mind for the 2022, at this time, there is no money in there for the Bainbridge project. But right now, I thought it would be good for her to give an update to BNF regardless on the Bainbridge because a lot happened and she has a lot to tell you. Colby.
Okay, we had a meeting the other day. When I say we have Bob Mitchell with the county, Maryland Coastal Bays, and we were talking about when this project's complete, it'll be a little over 2 years since it started. So it's been a long time coming. The project, I think I've mentioned before, was brought up in the late 90s. Commissioner Bunning worked on that, and it kind of just went by the wayside a little bit. And we applied for the grant, and we found out in August that we received $549,000, which was one of the 2 largest grants given in the state, and the largest that the county has ever received. Bob Mitchell, Commissioner Bertino, Commissioner Bunning with the county, Maryland Coastal Bays, you know, John, Doug, Tom Janicek, board, everyone's been really supportive of this project. It's kind of the backbone of what we hope to be future grant project opportunities. We're now talking about future grants. So it's, as you can see, even though it's been almost 2 years, it's a continuing thing. We're hoping to do more. So the project looks to be starting, the project dates are going to be starting around March 1st, and that's give or take a week, the end of February, possibly a week into March. And it looks to be completed October 31st. The funds, the 549, are going to be transferred to DNR. DNR will be the keeper of those funds, and will, once invoices are provided to them from the county, from us, we will be paid back, which usually is a 3-week turnaround for those. We have a contractor. It was very difficult to find a contractor for this large of a project. We had numerous people locally that the project was too large. So Vista Engineer was able to locate a contractor that they've worked with numerous times over the bridge, who has bid on the project. Their name is EQR, and Maryland Coastal Bays has actually also worked with them too. So they're a very, very reputable contractor. And we're starting to get that stuff together now. Ocean Pines approved $300,000 towards this project. We don't see us going over. In fact, hopefully we'll be favorable at the conclusion of the project.
Kobe, can I just?
Yeah, absolutely.
So Kobe just touched on, and there's a lot of good stuff here that I want to go, but that's the point I want to make is this. We had to look at this, obviously, since this is a top priority and we're committed to this, and rightfully so, with the 2022 budget to see if we needed more money that might go over to the next year. What Kobe just told you and what we just found out over the last week or two is that it looks like what we funded for this, we should be good. But it's important with this to understand this because we did not include it in the 2022. But Kobe's going to tell you, she's telling you why we don't have to.
Yeah, so we did get the one bid back, and it was lower than we projected we would spend on the actual project. However, when you're including all of the costs incurred from the moment we started this project to include engineering costs, costs that were spent last year, fiscal year, this current fiscal year, we still believe will be favorable to the 300,000. There is a possibility, this is not a guarantee, there's a possibility that we'll get reimbursed for some of those fees that we've already spent, and we'll know more as we go further. Public Works will be some of the oversight project management of the project. I'm the current contact with DNR in the county and the contractor as well. And we're actually $20,000 in payroll is reimbursable through this project for myself, Eddie, and Nobi for hours that we're going to be working. So we are going to get reimbursed through the grant for 2/3 of the hours that we put on this project, up to $20,000. So that's good too. And that's kind of a high level, quick oversight. Does anybody have any specific questions on that?
Brian.
Has work started yet, or when is work intended to start? Or is it, what's going on with the actual work?
So the next step right now is we're the contractor is looking at our Ocean Pines contract, so that'll come in, and obviously once that's received, it'll go to John and Steve, and we'll do the process we normally do. And the project DNR wants us to start the project by March 1st. So give or take a week, that's when the project should be starting.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, so you got it. First of all, good stuff. It just came in. This is one of the examples. It's a big number. It's a commitment where we need every week, even including the next several weeks this year for this budget to let everything unwind. This one obviously is coming together. A couple of weeks ago, we really didn't know which way it would go. At this point, the team is totally comfortable, and based upon what Kobe just shared with you all, that we do not need anything in the 2022 budget. Okay, so that's why that's a part of it, besides sharing some really good stuff that she has. That's all I have. Dick, it's in your hands.
I think I did a recap. Anybody have anything else to add or comment on?
I do want to add one more thing, if that's okay. I know John brought up in the beginning of the meeting today about the beautification, and it's been a priority for him, and he asked me to jump on board, and anything that involves flowers and trees and stuff I like, so I was happy to jump on board. And one of the first things that we're working on is putting in 12, and I know Eddie's going to say I say this wrong, but 12 Kwanzan cherry blossoms are going to go in on Cathell Road. They're annuals, and so Eddie described it, and he showed me the flowers, and I thought, we can pretend we're driving through DC as we're driving down Cathell Road. So, and those are actually, for 12 of those, it was around $1,700. So it's an annual bloom. They're going to be planted here shortly. in the next few weeks. We just have to do it when the ground is not frozen. Right now, we're lucky with that. That's the first step we're taking in that, and then we're looking at Northgate and Southgate, and you know, we're getting advice and suggestions as well with the Garden Club, who's very active in the community too. So I just wanted to point out that that's that people will see those popping up here shortly, and they should be really pretty.
That's all good stuff. Along the lines of beautification, you know, before we kicked in here this last session, the mailbox topic came up again. Certainly falls under beautification. So that's something that we still want to keep on the radar screen and try to be able to do something there to spruce things up.
And I'll tell you, I'm on the strategic plan committee. John has me on that, as well as the so the strategic plan committee. When we last met in November, the mailboxes were discussed, and that's one of the things that is on our list to look at for the future. So it's not, even though it's not in this current, it is on our strategic plan with the committee as well as the team here. So
I think the hope is on the part of BNF is that we can find some maintenance money in our current or next year's plan, be able to, at a minimum, clean up, paint, address the boxes themselves.
And Dick, and I'm with you with that. And, you know, I've already talked to Public Works. They have done some, and we are going to look at that. And we hope to be coming back to BNF with plans with that and what we can do based upon maintenance and stuff. But yes, and then obviously Kobe's on the strategic planning side, and we can see for the future. So it's not something that's off the radar. It's something that maybe, you know, we just need to see more maintenance, get more understanding everybody. And then, but we're committed to coming back to BNF and obviously on the strategic plan with it. Good.
Okay, thank you. So it's John, is there anything else that you had?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Yeah, Don has one thing here. Go ahead, Don.
Yeah, I just want to say that I'm new to this. Just started on this thing, and it's impressive. John, I think you guys did a good job. Kobe, terrific job. Steve in the background there, looking good. Anyway, I just want to say thanks. It's impressive, good operation, and good luck with everything.
thank you.
Thank you, Donna. Yeah, and it was good to have new blood on BNF. BNF is close to my heart. I mean, it was probably about 10, 12 years ago, if not longer. I was sitting there butting heads with Johnny O. But I learned a lot from him as far as the history in this place. And I'm glad he's still on there. I'm glad to see new Brian. I don't want to miss anybody here. I really, really am impressed with the BNF team. And that the fact that I had 3 board members there helping us out. I appreciate it. Kobe wants to say thank you.
Oh, yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, no, you're right. I'll accept that. It was great to have 3 board members here for here. That's very helpful to us in this process, and hopefully it's helpful to you as you take it to the next step. As I said in the beginning, John, your team has done a tremendous job putting this together, understanding it, explaining it, and working with us and including us even before to prep for it, to get ready for the capital items we reviewed in advance. So that's appreciated, and you know, hats off to you all.
Okay, thank you. And it's a process evolving over the next couple of weeks, and we'll be involved. Thank you. I'm going to sign off. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Colby. Thank you, Steve.